Hey, before we get into it, quick heads up on something. We're going to relaunch the Chase Club in April with some real honest-to-goodness structure. Daily lessons, Monday through Thursday, aka the Daily Chase, 21-day challenges every single month, and Friday, Chase Club chat clubs to keep all of the work alive. And in May, importantly, the price is going to go up significantly. Right now, it's just $8 a month or $80 a year. If you've been thinking about joining us, April is the best time. Lock in the lowest price it'll ever be. ChasingExcellence.email. The link is in the show notes. Okay, let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to the show, to what I've started in my head to lovingly call supercuts. I've done this a handful of times. I love going back into the archives, and I have loved over the last, I don't remember when I started this, but number of months, going back through and collecting episodes that are thematically linked and bringing them together in one long deep dive. I think we started this with Chris Irwin's 5 Mind Killers supercut, where I brought four episodes with Chris all together in one. I really liked it. Sometimes we pair it with an essay that we work on that are sort of born out of the episodes. This time around, though, this is a supercut that I've been looking forward to put together for a while now. So let's get into it. Over the years of the show, we've spent a lot of time talking, of course, about what it takes to chase excellence in your health, in your relationships, work, inner life. And while we spend a lot of time on what to do, we spend sort of a surprisingly little amount of time talking about what stands in the way. We did this recently in an episode Ben and I did about drift, and I wanted to bring this one shortly thereafter because I feel like it is within the same sort of idea of what is creating drift, and in this case, in today's case, what is distracting us from the life we actually want to lead. So that's what we've got. You may remember we did 3 episodes last year, all about the distractions keeping us from health, happiness, and living with our hearts on fire. And when we put all these together, something becomes really clear. And I hope you see it as this episode goes on. These distractions are not random. They follow a certain pattern. They start on the outside, the things that we're consuming, the people we're surrounding ourselves with, the standards we're chasing. Then they move inward, the belief systems, the psychological traps, and the ways we've been measuring ourselves against the wrong yardstick, or as we often say, we put our ladders up against the wrong walls. And then they go even deeper still to that existential layer, the fear, the doubt, the quiet comfort, keeping us from the life that sets our heart on fire. So here's what we've got today for you. In the first conversation, we're talking about the 3 distractions keeping you from health, the supplement trap, your social circle, and the perfect plan. In the second of 3 conversations, we've got 3 distractions keeping you from happiness, the 4 idols, inner judgment, and living other people's lives. And in the final conversation, we've got 3 distractions keeping you from living a life of purpose and passion, or what we call hearts on fire. It is the fear of uncertainty, self-doubt, and comfort seeking. So those are 9 distractions that we are going to unpack here in this long episode. 3 layers, 1 question underneath all of it. What is getting between you and the version of your life you know is possible? So let us find out with this first conversation all around the distractions keeping you from health. Before we dive into our conversation around health today, one, I'd love to just chat with you briefly around this term of distractions, because it really is something that I got from you. I think I must have been watching a video of you talking to one of your athletes at the gym, and you were talking about just like I think this was it. It was like, the minute you look in the morning or the night before, like, what's tomorrow's workout? And the stories start to go. And it starts to be one of those things where you're like, well, maybe I won't go tomorrow because I'm not good at that thing, or I hate that thing, or I've never done that thing. And labeling those as distractions, I thought was really interesting. I never used that word for that kind of thing. So just to enter into this conversation, this series of conversations around distractions, how do you think about distractions? How did you come to label these things as distractions?
I think it's a conglomeration of a bunch of different influences that kind of came to do this. One of them is this idea of single-pointed intention, which is if you just have a singular thing, like one. This comes from the mindfulness community, which is they focus on your breath, or you can focus on the flickering of a candle. Really, it's anything. The idea is that you have this one singular thing that you're focused on. In that case, you give it your all. Everything goes into that. So there is nothing pulling you away. But that's would be amazing if that was actually life, right?
Right.
I want to make $1 million in my career, so I'm going to go in single. But that's not the case. You have a family, you have a spouse, you have your own needs, desire. There's so many different things pulling you away from things. The other part of it that goes into this is this, like, different people call it different things. Freud called it the ego, the super ego, and the id. Other people call it self one, self two, like Tim Galloway from Inner Game of Tennis.
Yep.
Even like Ray Dalio has an essence of this, of like there's the two competing yous. Most religions have like this, this angel and devil riding on either shoulders that are competing. Those are distractions. That's like what we all have is we have these wants and these desires. I want to look awesome at the beach this summer. I want to have a great career. I want to have a great marriage. I want to eat salad. I want to be patient and calm. I want to fill in the blank. Well, if we want those things, how come we just don't do those things? How come those things just aren't there? And the reason is we get distracted. We get distracted by a lot of different things. As you're talking about, one of the things that we get distracted by is our own insecurities, which is that story we start to tell ourselves. Or we get distracted by our ego, or we get distracted by the comfort of our bed and the snooze alarm. We get distracted by how tasty that damn cookie seems. We get distracted by what everyone else around us is doing. So the obvious distractions that we can all kind of point to are ones that come in through the five senses, right? Which is, I'm doing something, I'm set upon path A, and I'm going to continue. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion unless acted upon by another force. That other force is a distraction. That distraction, usually when we recognize it like that, comes in the form through our five senses. You hear something. A fire alarm is a big distraction because you hear it. A baseball flying out of the corner of your eye towards your head, you're going to flinch and startle. It's like you're going to be distracted by that. Thank God, right? If all of a sudden you're working out and it gets crazy, crazy hot, you feel another sensation. You feel something. You are going for, this is a weird example, but you're going for a run. All of a sudden, like you go, there's roadkill and a skunk is killed. You'll slow down because it's so disgusting. That smell distracts you from what you're actually doing. So usually it comes in through something that you hear, that you see, that you smell, that you touch. It could be something that you taste, you get distracted by. But obviously us as human beings, most of the time, something that we see or hear.
Yep. That's
our strongest senses. But what most people don't have their radar and antenna up is the distractions that don't come in through those senses. They're deeper triggers inside of us that if we don't label them and understand them as a distraction, we just think it's this normal path. Yeah. But it's not. You want to be lean this summer. You've said you won, the one that sets up with the prefrontal cortex and the cognitive discipline, and the one that has like all of the precognition and the ability to really think thoughts well, goes, I want to look awesome at the beach this summer. Then there's the other you that gets distracted when you're with your friends and everyone's drinking beer, having chicken wings, and then the plate of cookies gets passed around. You're like, all right, like, you got to recognize that that's the distraction. Mm-hmm. That's the thing that's keeping us from that, amongst a whole host of other things, which I'm sure we're going to get into.
Yeah, right. Got it. Okay, cool. Love it. So we're going to talk about 3 distractions keeping us from health. And again, I'll just give you the preview: the lure of quick fixes, social and environmental influences, and obsession with outcomes. Here's the first one: the lure of quick fixes and health consumerism. Modern wellness culture bombards us with products, supplements, and hacks, selling the idea that health can't that health can be bought or shortcut. This doing health, purchasing gear, chasing trends, obsessing over the latest biohack, distracts from being healthy, which is grounded in simple, sustainable fundamentals: real food, consistent training, quality rest, an open mind, and meaningful relationships. The health industry thrives on confusion between health products and health principles, making expensive distractions out of what should be straightforward lifestyle choices.
That's so well said, Patrick. I think we move on to the next one. But it really is. I mean, that's like that. I mean, we should just like replay that again, because I loved what you said there about, what was it? Something besides being healthy. It's like
doing health versus being health.
Doing versus being.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. And I love the, like, people that, it's such a distraction, right? Like, people that listen here realize how simple yet challenging health is. And the reason is because we're so distracted, right? And one of them is the noise that's out there. We're being so pulled in so many different directions, whether it's the hacking our way there, or the consumerism, or the doing instead of being. So this is a big, like, I'm going to take an apple cider vinegar shot every single day, but I'm still going to eat highly processed foods because I can't say no. They're not changing the thing. They're still like crazy distracted. I'm not saying don't do that, but don't think that that's the answer. Like, can it be a part of? Sure. Is it? I think of it in terms of essential. Like, can you have great health from doing apple cider vinegar shots? And the answer, like, is that essential? Do you need to do that to have great health? The answer is obviously no, you do not. Can you have great health without eating clean food? And the answer is no, it's essential. You need to eat clean food to be able to do that. So we think of it on times that spectrum. It's like the distractions start to fall away. Like, oh, wait a minute. A great one is like the blue light glasses. Like, I'm going to wear blue light glasses, but I'm going to stay up 2 hours later staring at this screen, but I have blue light glasses on, so I'm doing health, but yet I'm going to eat into my 8-hour sleep and only get 5:45 or 6 hours, but blue light glasses. And I think that it's a cool thing just to kind of pop the lid off a little bit and kind of go, with all of the information that's available now and how everyone is now an expert in this thing, the recommendations and the noise is, so you can find whatever hunch you have, you can find something that kind of confirms it. I shouldn't eat strawberries. Go look up, why should I not eat strawberries? It's, oh my God. And talk about like and you're going to find products that support why you shouldn't eat strawberries. And it's this. So, yeah. I think it's one of those things, what I just said, expensive distractions. And a lot of these things, I talk to EC about this a lot, because is she persistent in knocking down the distractions as best she can. And what she says is a lot of these things, like, you can shrug your shoulders and say, yeah, like, is the apple cider vinegar going to hurt? No, but the danger is that you think, okay, well, I took my apple cider vinegar shot this morning and therefore I'm healthy. Therefore, I don't have to really consider what I'm eating or how much I slept last night or what goes on between my ears or the relationship that I have. Like, all we let ourselves off the hook if we say, cool, like, I did my blue light glasses, I jumped in the cold, in the cold bath or whatever, and I took my apple cider vinegar shot. Like, I'm healthy, right? I don't have to worry about the other stuff, because the other stuff is the harder stuff. It's the stuff that you need to be more consistent with. It's a lot slower. So I think that's the danger of these kinds of distractions, is that they let us off the hook and let us tell ourselves the story that we're doing the things we need to do to be healthy, and then not paying attention to the things that actually do create the health that we say we want. So the way you just laid that out is so, you can imagine somebody doing their apple cider vinegar shot in the morning, right? And then getting on their vibration platform to do their toning, right? To get fit, having their superfoods with their chia seeds and their acai and their microgreens, getting on the computer with their blue light glasses, for lunch, they're having their cleansing juices and taking sleep gummies before they go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
They are doing health like hugely. Their day is actually like consumed by it.
Yeah.
That's not health. Like that's the distraction, right?
Yep.
Now, are those things wrong? No, I don't think any of those things are necessarily wrong. But to your point, we don't want to conflate doing with being, right? And just to call it out, we don't want to give ourselves credit for the work we haven't done.
Yep.
Like those are the easy things. Like, yeah, apple cider vinegar shots suck, but you know what is a whole lot harder? Like cooking a home-cooked meal.
Yeah.
That's the hard thing. You know what is like not kind of is people would rather do a lot of other things rather than get on the toning vibrator, and like with their 1 pound plates and 1 pound weights, is actually doing real strength training and real conditioning work that will actually move the needle for you. So yeah, a little bit of this is actually like calling it out. Like it's a reason that a lot of people get frustrated with work because they confuse being busy with productive.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They show up to work early.
Yep.
They put in longer hours than everybody else, but you don't get credit for being busy.
Yeah.
You don't get credit in the health world for doing health. You get it from being.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. There is a difference between effort and outcome. And we always want to think that the effort is the thing that matters when it's rarely the case. It's usually the outcome that we're aiming for, but the effort we can modulate a little bit more, whereas the outcome sometimes can be outside of our control. But what's interesting about that is what I think can happen is, going back to that individual who did all the health things, right, that you just laid out from morning to night, and they do that for 2 weeks or 2 months, and they say it's not working.
Right.
And then they get to the place, well, it doesn't matter. I'm never going to get there. I'm never going to fill in the blank, lose the weight, get stronger, be able to keep up with the kids, whatever it might be, because they're spending all of their energy and a good amount of their money on things that ultimately aren't going to move the needle. But if they don't know that, they think that they tried, they put in the effort, and the outcome didn't come. So they're not the kind of person who can get healthy. And so it's another reason why these distractions are so dangerous, is because we get confused when we pay attention to those things and they don't yield what we think they're going to yield. Then we just say, then we just throw our hands up and say, it's not going to happen for me. I'm not the kind of person who can get healthy. And so who cares?
Yeah, man. I put myself in that category years ago, whereas I used to go to the gym, at 4 or 5 days a week, and I never really saw much change, and I tried to eat healthy, but I didn't see much change. That's a really frustrating experience.
Totally.
And I go like, well, you kind of throw your hands up a little bit. Now, as you know, like you move things a little bit and you see like a result, like you see changes almost instantaneously because you're doing things that matter. You're doing things that actually move the needle.
Yeah.
And it's again, send me back to the beginning of this, but it's so easy to get distracted by the consumerism because that's what they're. It's companies don't make a whole lot of money by selling you broccoli and chicken. They just don't. Everybody knows what works.
Yep.
But it's not that. You know what it is? It's the next BCAA. It's the next magnesium and zinc combination. It's the next this thing. It's because it's easier. It's just easier than going to bed and getting 8.5 hours of sleep. Like it sounds crazy because you're just closing your eyes, but it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to change your lifestyle to do that. But if you put those 5 factors in place and you turn a dial 2 or 3 degrees, your body and your mind and your emotions respond 2 or 3 degrees. Mm-hmm. That's where we want to be. Mm-hmm. Not, I'm going to add in the next hack and add in the next one, try to live that lifestyle that I just described for 3 weeks and not really feel anything. my best friend was asking me, we were talking about different supplements. And we were talking about, he's like, do you see the difference? He was talking about NAD. And he's like, my feed is full of them. You know, my doctor I'm going to is saying I should get on it. Have you ever done it? I was like, yeah, I've done it. I did NAD for a number of years. And he's like, how'd you feel? And I was like, honestly, I've never felt any different from any supplement I've ever taken, ever. Like, I've never felt the difference, including NAD, like all of it. That's so crazy. Like, whereas if I go and I turn the dial a little bit with the comp train programming and do just like the little extra, I do one little extra accessory piece, or I add in the Sunday run day, like in 3 weeks, you're a completely different physiological being.
Yep.
Like if you get an extra 90 minutes of sleep for 3 weeks, like you're a crazy different human being. If you eliminate 90% of the processed foods that you've been eating, in 10 days, you're going to be a totally different. There's nothing that comes close, minus, I don't know, but I'm guessing like illegal stuff would do that. But it's like the simplicity is the power is always in the simplicity, but it's hard. You can't just do the little fringy type stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to cold plunge, right? Yeah. Cold plunge can help for a lot of reasons, but it's not gonna incinerate fat off your body the way that everyone's saying it does.
Makes me think of the old 80-20 rule, right? Where 20% of your inputs create 80% of the outputs that you're looking for. And I think it is if there's a takeaway from this bit of the conversation, from this distraction, it's to really do the work of figuring out like what are the 20% that's going to create 80% of the health results that I'm looking for. And it's to your point, they're hard to sell, but they're the things we talk about all the time, which is the 5 factors, right? Get enough sleep, train, eat right, get your head right, and have really strong, meaningful, powerful relationships. I'm going to wager it's going to get you more than 80% of what you're looking for. I'd say that's about 99.7.
Yeah. Just around that 99.7.
Yeah. All right. So that's our first distraction, the lure of quick fixes and health consumerism. Let's jump into our second one, which is social and environmental influences. The people we surround ourselves with, our social networks, and our daily environments shape our health behaviors far more than willpower alone. Negative social circles, toxic relationships, or unsupportive environments can make healthy choices feel isolating or impossible. Conversely, positive, health-oriented communities like supportive gyms or active peer groups reinforce good habits. Social isolation, peer pressure, and the default settings of our physical and digital environments are powerful distractions that can pull us away from our health priorities. Where shall we begin with this one?
Yeah. So intentionally build your crew. Right? That's what really matters. Now, you can't choose your family, but you can choose your friends. And if it's hard to do that, then seek out the positive places, right? Like supportive gyms, like you mentioned. Your environment is also shaped by what you watch, what you listen to, what you read. It's your physical, and it's basically all of your body is trying really hard to figure out its environment. So there's actually a physiological component to this. There's a psychological and there's an emotional. And the physiological is like if you're in a stressful environment, meaning toxic relationships, abuse, whatever terrible, your body is going to be crushed. You will be, if you're not, you're on the path to disease is honestly what happens, because we've talked about this, but you're forcing your body into a chronic state of fight or flight. You are switching into the sympathetic nervous system, and in that system, your basically stress hormones are on go mode, and all of your repair hormones are downregulated. Your immune system is downregulated. Your digestion is downregulated. You got massive gut issues, skin issues, and you're susceptible to all sorts of pathogens and disease. That's a crazy thing. So like physiologically, this isn't like just emotionally. This isn't just like physiologically. You're putting yourself in a horrific state that's going to lead to sickness, disease, decrepitude. Emotionally, it's exhausting, and it takes up your willpower to have to combat those psychological forces that are weighing you down. You're going to be in a bad mood, you're going to be exhausted, and you have less energy, you have less willpower to put towards the other stuff. And it's why people in those states end up being couch potatoes or video game addicts or addicts of other sorts. It's terrible. And then on top of that, you're just sad. You're angry. You're not in an optimal state. So if we want to be in flow, which is where our best self comes about, you can't be there when you're there because you're so attached to past and future, your regrets, you're anxious. We need to be able to put ourselves into good environments. Yep. Really, environment will beat willpower. James Clear has this awesome quote: "Don't always expect to have the power to say no. Design a life where you don't have to."
Yep.
Right? So this is why we at our house, we just don't have junk food in our house. It's because I forget about my kids. Like, I can't say no.
Yep.
I don't want to have to fight that fight. Like, if there's something like trail mix in the house, like, forget about it. Like, my brain, my self-talk goes, you should just finish that. Just finish it so you don't have to fight this thing anymore.
Yep.
Like, otherwise, like the fridge or the freezer or the cupboard or the pantry is just going like, Ben.
Yep. It's like this constant magnetic pull on your mind.
Totally.
Even when you're not thinking about it, when you're not consciously thinking about it, it's always there in the back of your head.
So then it goes like, just finish it. Just finish it so you don't have to do that anymore. Don't do that battle. Well, what the easier way to do it is, like, just don't have it there at all.
Yeah.
Imagine being somebody that's trying to quit smoking cigarettes, and you just lay like cigarettes and lighters out around the whole house.
Yep.
Like, what are you doing? That's such a terrible way to try to. Well, that's what we try to do. We're trying to get ourselves off of the processed food, yet we have it everywhere, all around us. We want our kids to eat healthier, yet it's in our pantries, fridge, freezers. It's everywhere. It's so much easier when your kids say, like, "Can I have a snack?" You go, "Yeah, anything you want. Go grab anything you want." Like, and it's just there. Like, you're not always going to have the willpower to say no. So set up your environment so you don't need to.
Yeah,
it's such an easier way to do it.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to also point out it's not just the actual I ate the cookies again, or I smoked the cigarette, but it's also like identity becomes a really big part of this. And if we want to be healthy people, and yet our actions are running counter to that, then our identity will never be such that, like, I'm a healthy person, or I eat healthy food, or fill in the blank, however you might put that. Because every day, or almost every day, or certainly maybe a couple times a day, you prove to yourself that you're not that person, because your environment isn't set up in such a way that you weren't constantly being pulled in all these directions that we don't want to be pulled. And so if you eat the cookie, you can't then say, I'm a healthy person and I eat healthy food, because you just ate the cookie. So now you failed, and now you have to dig yourself out of that hole and get back to zero, where it's like, okay, I'm a healthy person and I have to prove it to myself. And so every time you have to prove it to yourself and then you fail at that, it becomes a little bit harder to tell yourself that story. And I think you and I know really well that, like, if you can't tell yourself that story honestly, then you're really, like, it's not going to happen, because it's the identity comes first. The identity leads to the actions lead to the belief, and the belief enforces the identity. And so we've got to recognize that our environment is also, we also want to set up our environment in such a way that we can enforce the identity that we want and counter the identity that we're fighting against.
We have such a bias for confirmation as humans. We so badly want to act in ways that confirm the belief system that we have about ourselves. That's why that's so powerful. What you just laid out is that identity really does matter. If you think of yourself as a funny person, you're going to look for social confirmation that you're a funny person, which then actually makes you a funny person. It's the same thing that happens with health. And I think this works a little bit counter to what maybe most people think, which is, Well, if I don't have it in the house, when I go out, I'll go off the rails.
Yeah.
And in more cases than not, it's actually the opposite. That's true because you haven't done it in the house. Now you've set yourself up into a success cycle. You don't want to break the success cycle. So when you go out to eat, you're kind of like, you know what? I'm going to skip dessert today and I'm just going to have the side salad instead of the plate of nachos. Because that's you've done it. You're doing the thing. This is who you are now, and it's this confirmation as opposed to the opposite. Even if there is the day where you get the plate of nachos and you get dessert, it's not as bad because you're going back to your clean environments, right? You're going back to the 80-20, which you laid out before, where you're going to have 80% of your day is going to be set up in a more positive way. If 20% is not dialed, it's not going to affect as much.
This episode is brought to you by Function Health. Here at Chasing Excellence, of course, we optimize training, nutrition, sleep, recovery, but most of us share a blind spot. What is happening structurally inside our bodies that we can't feel it, at least not yet. Function's advanced MRI scans look for signs of hundreds of conditions across up to 14 organs, including early signs of cancer, before you ever feel a thing. It's FDA cleared AI, no ionizing radiation. It's reviewed by board certified radiologists. You can add Function's 160 plus lab tests and you've got the most complete picture of your health available. Most people don't check under the hood until something breaks. We don't do that with our training. We shouldn't do that with our health. We use Function here at the show. We think you should too. You can get ahead of what you can't feel yet. Function's advanced MRI scans screen for hundreds of conditions. You can add scans to your Function membership and get up to a $200 credit by going to functionhealth.com/excellence. That's functionhealth.com/excellence. We are brought to you this time around by Momentous. Here's something I have noticed in the performance space and honestly on the show. As we have these conversations, people will obsess over the training, dial in their protein, track their sleep to the minute, and still feel like something's off. Most of the time, the problem isn't what they're optimizing, it's the foundation beneath all of it, which is gut health. When your gut is not dialed in, your body can't absorb nutrients the way it should. Energy becomes unstable, recovery slows, focus gets harder to hold. Everything else you're doing works just a little less. That's what Momentous Fiber Plus was built to address, one of the most overlooked foundations of long-term performance. It's a complete 3-in-1 formula, soluble fiber, insoluble fiber, and a prebiotic-resistant starch, designed to support gut health from start to finish. Science-first formulation, clean ingredients, NSF for sports certified. If it doesn't meet Momentous' standard, it does not hit the shelves. Right now, Momentous is offering our listeners, that's you, up to 35% off your first order when you use the promo code EXCELLENCE. Head to livemomentous.com. Use that code EXCELLENCE for up to 35% off that order. That's livemomentous.com, promo code EXCELLENCE. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Here's something worth sitting with. 88% of Americans started 2026 with some form of financial stress. That's basically everybody. And here's what I think gets missed. Financial stress isn't just a money problem. It bleeds into your sleep, your focus, your relationships. It's one of the leading sources of conflict between couples. And it can quietly become a mental health issue, and most people never make that connection. Maybe you grew up in a house where money was stressful, where it was just left up to you to figure it out or not. And maybe now you finally come to understand that the stress itself, the shame, the anxiety, the weight of it all is what's doing a lot of the damage. That's exactly what therapy is built to help you with. BetterHelp is not, of course, financial advice. It is a place to work through the emotions, though, that money stress brings. You can do it with a fully licensed therapist matched to your specific needs. When life gets overwhelming, therapy can help. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/excellence. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/excellence. Last thing on this one maybe harkens back a little bit to the first one, which is health consumerism, but it's the digital environment that we set up for ourselves. And specifically what I mean by that is the algorithm that we have created for ourselves. And I think this is really important. It's kind of funny because I'm actually in the middle of, I'm trying, mostly successfully, but I'm trying to go the entire month of May without watching or viewing any algorithmically decided content, which is
Whoa.
surprisingly hard. So anything, and most people will know what this is by now, but an algorithmic, feed is when you go on Instagram and you click on the whatever the thing is, where it's like the For You basically page. And it's just like Instagram's like, here's a bunch of stuff based on things you've liked and watched before. Let's watch some more of it. And TikTok is 100% this. This is what TikTok figured out how to do really, really well. But it's on YouTube, it's on Netflix even. Like the things that Netflix gives you are the things that are similar to what you've watched before. So all to say, I'm trying really hard to disengage from the algorithm in terms of what I choose to give my time and my attention to. So I'm thinking about this already, but I'm thinking about this specifically here because what we watch and engage with, the algorithm is going to give us more of that. And if we are engaging with some of this sort of silliness that we can find on social media as it relates to health, right? Whatever it might be, right? Don't eat strawberries, or you need the blue blocker glasses, whether it's they're trying to sell you something or it's an influencer trying to convince you of something. If you engage with those things, you'll get more of those things. And if you spend a lot of time watching these pieces of content and from these individuals, you will start to believe that this is real. Because that's how our brains work. If we see something a lot, the frequency bias, we begin to believe that it is true and that it is true for everybody. And so I just bring that up to say, like, I think it's really important to recognize how much agency we should have, or we should try to have, over everything that gets our attention, especially the things that get our attention when we're sort of half asleep while watching it, when we're just sort of mindlessly scrolling, because it's learning what we're going to continue to engage with. And the algorithm's goal, the algorithm's job is to get us to continue doing that for as long as possible so that we can watch more Nissan ads. And so just being really clear on what is our digital environment, knowing that that's going to paint a picture of what the world is and what is important and what we keep seeing more of, I think is really important. I don't know that we're ever taught this. And I think it's something we've got to stumble our way towards, the recognition of how powerful these algorithms are and how much agency we need to, how much effort we need to put in to retain our agency as it relates to that.
What would you say if your algorithm is skewed towards seemingly productive information? So it is about being healthy. It is about being fit. It is about being a better dad. It is about being more centered. Mm-hmm. What's your take on that?
I think I would be. Well, I think that's great. I think that most people probably aren't that. If I had to take a wild guess, like if we could really peek into people's algorithms, I think that we would see that mostly again, unless we're doing it with some intention, and you and I aren't normal in this case. And so I don't think if you looked at yours or mine, we would see these things. But I think if you're not intentional with it and you don't have a decent sense of where these distractions are as it relates to health and happiness, and if we're just led to believe what everybody else wants us to believe, I think that most people's algorithm is feeding them generally nonsense, where it's rare to get really good stuff, because really good stuff is not engagement worthy. Telling you to sleep 9 hours is not going to get a lot of likes, and therefore is not going to get a lot of attention on these platforms. I always laugh with EC because, man, she's doing her damnedest to get people to eat more fruits and vegetables. But like, just continuing to tell people to eat more fruits and vegetables is not ever going to be viral. It's not ever going to bubble up into the various algorithmic feeds that we're all kind of subjected to, because it's not sexy, it's not new, it's not controversial, it doesn't make anybody angry. Everybody's like, yeah, of course we should eat more fruit. So like the things that we talk about across these 5 factors, the things we've been talking about today, they just don't.
So you're saying we're not going to go viral?
I don't think so. Occasionally,
right.
But not often. But they don't lend themselves to the digital environments in which we all live, unless, to your point, you do the work of intentionally engaging with these things so that the algorithm's like, oh, I guess you want more of this. Mm-hmm. It's out there. It's just you have to kind of go looking for it versus sitting passively on your couch, scrolling and hoping to get healthier. Right. I don't think that works.
I think that's a big one as well. So the average person spends 7+ hours a day looking at a screen. That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
And today, most health behaviors are influenced by what they see on those screens.
Yep.
So to your point a little bit, I think even if, unless you're doing like the AI terminology now, the deep research, right?
Mm-hmm.
To figure out who the trustworthy sources are, and are these, kind of like pull it back, but are these first principles or are these kind of attention grabbing?
Yep.
We're probably, again, being distracted. Even if you're, because I know this is kind of what I do. I only follow like 35 accounts.
Yep.
And half of them are my friends.
Yep.
Maybe 25 are friends, right? Maybe 30 of them are friends.
Yep.
I follow these, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 that I want to get good information from, that I trust. But it's not like those are the only ones I'm getting pumped full of distracting stuff all the time that I have to fight my way through.
Yep.
And I'll pop up 15 minutes later being like, what the heck? I don't even know why I'm on this thing anymore.
Right.
And, Cal Newport has said to us that, your attention is your most valuable thing. So we need to, if it's our most valuable thing, we need to learn to spend it wisely.
Yes.
And we just get so now, particularly more than ever, the distractions are everywhere. So if you were, a 40-something-year-old guy 200 years ago, besides like what you read in the newspaper and hear at the local pub, there's like zero distraction throughout your day.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's nothing pulling you away from what you set out to do. If you want to be a good family man, or if you want to try to be a politician, or if you want to open up a restaurant or be an entrepreneur, there's very, very little pulling you away from that. Now we just have this crazy amounts of abundance of information,
yep,
which causes our attention to get fractured and slivered into smaller and smaller little bits. And I think, this attention or distraction conundrum, I kind of wrote about this in the first book, Chasing Excellence, but I talk with my athletes about this. It's like, you only have so many matchsticks to burn every day. You have a book of matches. Let's say each book of matches has 30 matchsticks in it. You need to decide what you're going to spend your matchsticks on. You're going to burn them up, meaning your attention, your energy, your effort, your focus on certain things. If you're doing that on things that are outside of your control, you don't move forward. You're just staying right where you are. If you burn those matchsticks on things that you can influence and you can control, particularly if they are these first principles, like eating right, sleeping right, training right, getting your mind right, getting your relationships right, you'll move really far forward.
Mm-hmm.
So what we want to do is make sure that we are just spending our matchsticks as productively as we possibly can.
Yep, agreed. Okay, let's jump to our third. So we talked about the lure of quick fixes, the importance of social and environmental influences, and our third is obsession with outcomes and perfectionism. Many lose sight of the purpose of health by becoming overly attached to metrics like PRs, body weight, or appearance, or by letting passion for health escalate into obsession. This perfectionism can lead to burnout, social withdrawal, and a rigid mindset that sees anything less than ideal as failure. The distraction here is the belief that winning at health is the goal, rather than using health as a foundation for a fuller, more meaningful life. Obsession can crowd out balance, flexibility, and the joy of progress, turning health into another source of stress instead of support for well-being. That's one of my favorite things, is this concept of like not trying to win the gym.
Yeah. George St. Pierre, the famous, one of the best UFC fighters of all time, and is a fitness freak and fanatic. He and his trainer had this thing, which was like, we have the perfect routine, right? Mm-hmm. Which is, we do our 30-minute mobility, we do our warm up, we do our skills and our striking, we do our explosive stuff, and then we do our conditioning, we do our cool down, we do our body work, we do our sauna, we do all this thing, right? It's this perfect thing. They also knew that they might never have that. If they get it, great. But the idea was not to get that. It was to get the minimal. Let's at least get to the gym and get some striking work in. Let's at least get to where we get our body work done. Let's at least get this thing. Too much of us these days, I see in the gym all the time, have this, well, if I can't do it all, I'm not going to do it at all.
Yeah.
We'd have these nutrition challenges and people don't sign up because they're like, well, I'm going to Vegas though. I'm going to Vegas for a bachelor party on that one weekend. It's a 40-day challenge and they're going to be away for 3 days of it. And they don't do it because they're not going to be perfect on those 3 days.
Yeah.
So they use it as this out of, I'm not going to do it at all. This is the same storytelling you gave in the beginning about the person not wanting to go to the gym in the morning after they see the workout.
Yep.
Well, I'm not going to do as well in the workout as somebody else because of this, or I'm not going to. What we need to do, I read this morning in the Daily Stoic, basically said it's a takeoff of Aristotle's, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then therefore is not an act, but a habit. It's just and Seneca takes that and basically says like, we just have to build habits. And the way, if we want to be something, do something. It doesn't mean if you want to be it, you have to be it. I mean, it's like, if you want to be strong, you don't have to squat 300 pounds. You have to do the things that are going to get you to squat 300 pounds. What's that mean? Today, just do any form of squat. It's better than nothing. One of my favorite sayings, one of my favorite quotes that I ever came across was, I think I actually morphed this. So this isn't even the quote. I morphed it. A 1,000-meter run, like a 1K run, right? Which takes like 4 minutes. A 1K run has more in common with a 10K run than a 0K run. Like 1 is closer to 10 than 1 is to 0. Going from 0 to 1 is the biggest step. Everything after 1 is almost like bonus points, but you got to get to 1. If you think of it in terms of like 1s and 0s, not like 1s to 100s. Right? Everyone's like, well, if I can't be 100%, why would I do this? No, it's like, get the 1. Get one thing. Like, it's all about just these little things that stack. And James Clear, again, has this aggregation of marginal gains, right? Which was taken from one of David Blansfield, I think, which is the British cycling.
Yeah,
exactly.
Cycling.
Yep. Which is this idea that if you just do a bunch of small things well over time, in a week, you don't notice any difference. There will be no difference. In a month, there's probably still no difference. In a year, you might be able to start to see some differences. But over the course of 10 years, it's unrecognizable. It's this idea of like, just do the nutrition challenge and get 50% of the points every day.
Right.
If you did that every day for 10 years, you're unrecognizable. But yet what people do instead is, though, I can't be perfect, so I'm going to stay at 0. It's just this weird cognitive bias that we have that we don't want to lose things. We don't want to lose. We don't want to come up short in anything. And what we're really afraid of is failure. And we see not winning as failure.
Yep.
It's just this society that you take someone like Cole Sager, who's been to the CrossFit Games 11 consecutive years, which is just astronomical. He's been at the 0.000001% of the athletic population for over a decade. Yet if you were to say that career over somebody that went to the CrossFit Games once but won it, which would you take? 90% of the people are going to be like, I'd rather win it.
Yep.
Because we don't give credit to consistency. we only give credit to the highlight reel, which is the thing that you can post and get accolades and awards for, which is the social recognition. There is no social recognition for long, slow consistency. So we discount it massively. Yep. That's a huge disservice to ourselves. We have to recognize that it is these slow drip, 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 drip that eventually fills up the bucket, not one big splash that spills out the side and you're left with only a little bit at the bottom.
Yep.
So it's this idea that we have to kind of like push away this need for this obsession for perfection, which stops us from starting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, think about perfection as the fear of being human. For some reason, we don't like to face, maybe this harkens back a bit to our mindset continuum of being the realist. Like we just don't want to be the realist sometimes. We don't want to just face the fact that it's really hard for me to go 40 days straight with eating in this particular way. And here's an excuse. I'm going to Vegas for 3 days, right? So I can't do it. But just the recognition that being human is being imperfect is so wildly important as it relates to this pursuit of health. Because like, again, back to the digital environment we live in, we live in, as something you've said before, like we live in an environment, we see everybody's highlight reels, right? And so when you do that long enough and you do that consistently enough, you start to believe that everybody else is perfect except for me. You start to believe that everybody else has got it figured out and I'm just stumbling around here and I've got no idea what I'm doing. When the truth is, like when you really get into it, nobody knows anything, nobody knows what they're doing, and everybody's stumbling along to a degree, right? And so, but if you never say, yeah, the stumbling is actually what makes me human and not what makes me a failed human, until you can get there, then the allure of perfectionism and the barrier of perfectionism will always stand very tall.
That said like a true creative. I think it's because I think athleticism, like you're a creative, you're an artist. And it's very similar in the world of athleticism and the creative arts. It's this like stage fright. Yep. It's this idea like if I put myself out there, I might not win. In my athletic career, I've suffered from that hugely. What we're really coming down to is like the idea of this fixed versus growth mindset.
Yep.
That's the simplest way to kind of tee this whole thing up. The perfectionist has a fixed mindset, which if I can't win, I'm not going to compete.
Yep.
That for me was a big part of my identity when I was, coming up in the sport of CrossFit. I was petrified of losing, so I wouldn't put myself out there as often as I could have. It's only like that's why I figured out I became a better coach than I was an athlete, because I understood that aspect of it. I understood how powerful that was and how detrimental that was to performance, to gains, to improvement, to fulfillment, to ending your career with looking back and going like, yeah. And Katrin was the opposite of that, right? Like, let's just go, like, I think Sam Briggs was probably the best I ever saw at it.
Shout out to Sam Briggs.
Yeah, because she just competed with so much joy for the sake of competing. She just wanted to like see let's just see what happens. I just want to see what happens. Like, what a cool way to walk through a career, to walk through life. Like, yeah, let's do that. Let's see what happens. Like, this is going to be a conversation we have for the next one, but no expectation, no self-judgment, no what are they going to think. It's such a freer way to operate. And we don't need to be world-class athletes or stage performers to have this be as meaningful as it is in the much smaller ways, right? Which is, I'm not going to show up to the gym today because I can't be perfect. I'm not going to take on that new responsibility because I can't do it perfectly.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I fall victim to that. Every once in a while when I see rope climbs programmed at the gym, I'm like, maybe I'm not going today, right? But what a terrible way to never learn something. Last thing I want to hit on is what I said right at the end of the little thing I read out, which is turning health into another source of stress. What a strange knot people can get tied into when they are pursuing health, but health becomes so such an important part of their lives that it actually just causes them to lose sleep or to beat themselves up or, right, fill in the blank. I'd love any tips you have on what do we do if we find ourselves putting health on such a pedestal that it's in fact doing the exact opposite of what we'd hoped it would do?
I think this is probably hits people at all parts of the bell-shaped curve, right? Whether you're really unhealthy, you're sedentary and you're 60 pounds overweight, like that burden of health can weigh so heavy. That's a big stress on top of the normal stress of not being healthy.
Yep.
To everyone in the middle that we talked before, the people that are trying, but they're being distracted for whatever reason. They're not where I was, in my college years. And that's a stress as well, all the way to the group that you're talking about, which is like the people that stress about the PRs and stress about their place on the leaderboard and stress about not going out with it being an environment that they can't control at all because they're not going to have their, quinoa that's been washed in the tears of Zeus, I think it's everybody. It's just, it happens in different ways, but yeah, it's a stressful thing because it matters, right? It matters a lot. It matters a lot to people in all areas of that. I think everybody wants better health, every single person. So whenever you have an expectation versus a reality and there's a gap between the two, that is a opportunity for stress. I'm not going to say that's what causes, but it's an opportunity for stress because you start to storytell about the gap. And this is a little bit like, well, last time I tried it, past, or man, I wish I was in future. You're pulling yourself away from the present, which is the only thing that you can actually affect, is just go and actually do the thing. When you can go and actually do the thing, meaning go cook yourself a good meal, go hug your wife, go out in the backyard and play with your kids, get up in the morning and get some sunlight, get into the mountains, get into the ocean, go lift some heavy weights, do some pull-ups, eat some vegetables, grow a garden. Like those are the things that actually move you towards the thing, as opposed to what most of us do, which is sit in the storytelling cycle.
Yeah.
And we ruminate. And we just ruminate and we ruminate and we ruminate and we end up formulating fabricated stories which are not true, which is this is the way I'm always going to be because of my past. I never will because you put all these blockers in front of you. Instead of the way we started the conversation, don't get distracted by the rumination. Don't let the storytelling take advantage of you and just go and do the thing and be like Sam Briggs and just enjoy the process of it.
All right. That first conversation, all about the external distractions, the things outside of you that pull your attention away from the health you're so capable of building. The supplement that promises a shortcut, the social circle that's quietly pulling you toward a lower standard, and the perfect plan that never quite gets executed because it's always just one tiny tweak away from being ready. Notice what all three of them have in common. They are things you can see. You can point to them. You can fix them. You can swap them out. But here's the thing we keep bumping into. Once you solve the external stuff, something interesting happens. You realize the obstacle was never actually there. It was always in here, right? Because even when your training is dialed in, even when your nutrition is on point, even when you've cleared away the external clutter, you can still find yourself deeply, persistently unhappy. And the reason more often than not is that you've been chasing the wrong things, measuring yourself against the wrong standard, living inside a story that was never yours to begin with. So that's what this next conversation is all about. We'll get into it right after this break. We are brought to you this time around by Shopify. Here's something I've come to believe pretty deeply. You can't do hard things by yourself. Whether it's fitness, building a habit, starting a business, having the right support around you changes everything. A coach who knows what you're doing, a community that keeps you accountable, people who have been where you're going and can help you get there faster. Starting a business, of course, no different. For millions of people, Shopify is that built-in partner. Behind brands you know, Gymshark, Allbirds, Magic Spoon, and countless businesses just getting started, Shopify is the commerce platform that handles the hard stuff so you can focus on building. Hundreds of ready-to-use templates to get your store up fast, built-in AI tools to write product descriptions and sharpen your pages, email and social campaigns to find your customers, inventory, payments, analytics, all in one place, and award-winning 24/7 support whenever you get stuck. You don't have to figure all of this out alone. Start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify, and start hearing. Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/excellence. That's shopify.com/excellence. This episode is brought to you by Cheers Health. I do not drink, and I never have, but I do spend a good amount of time thinking about recovery, sleep, and next day readiness. And I can tell you, alcohol is one of the most disruptive things you can do to all three. As we get older, especially, even a couple of drinks, will crater your sleep score and leave you operating at less than your best the next day. But Cheers is here to help. If you're going to drink, no judgment from me, you should at least give your body the best possible support recovering from it. Cheers Restore works while you sleep. The DHM smooths out the brain rebound that causes that foggy, slightly off feeling the next morning, and the Crystine helps your liver clear out the toxic byproducts faster. Take Cheers Restore after your last drink or before going to bed. You'll wake up feeling at least 50% better, or you'll get your money back. For a limited time, you can get 20% off your entire order by using the code EXCELLENCE at cheershealth.com. Cheershealth.com. Use the code EXCELLENCE for 20% off. And after you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please let them know that we sent you. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Element. That's LMNT, the letters, not the word. Here's something you might be overlooking. Most of us have the workout hydration piece figured out. Pre-training, intra-workout, post, of course, dialed in. We got that. But what about the rest of the day? The desk hours, the school run, the long afternoons, all that in-between stuff. That's exactly what Element's new 12-ounce sparkling is built for. Same science-backed formula that we've been talking about for years. 500 milligrams of sodium, 100 milligrams of potassium, 30 milligrams of magnesium. Now in a slim, sparkling can made for everyday life, not just those tough workouts. No sugar, no food dye, 4 flavors that are salty, bright, and genuinely refreshing. We have been enjoying Element here at the show for years, and the 12-ounce has become the grab and go that we didn't know we were missing. Get yourself a free Element sample pack with any of your orders. As always, drinkelement.com/excellence. That's drinkelement.com/excellence. Before we jump in, and this is as much for my own curiosity as perhaps other folks, you just posted something the other day, maybe even yesterday from when we were recording this. You just hiked up Mount Washington with some friends. I would love to know about it because that sounds really fun.
Oh, cool. Okay, so for people that aren't in the Northeast, Mount Washington, it's the highest peak on the East Coast, which compared to the everywhere else in the country is not, well, let's just say everywhere else in the country. Compared to the big mountains, it's not. It's like 6,300 feet, right? Mm-hmm. But it is the place of the highest recorded winds ever recorded by man in the world at 230 miles an hour or something like that. So it's known for like this kind of New England, the weather can change in a beat, and we certainly had that. We had amazing, amazing weather, and then it was thundering, and then it would, the clouds would kind of spill over and roll in. There'd be bright sunshine again. It was kind of wild. But the super cool part was, it was a multi-day. We took 2 days up there. We stayed overnight up there. There was nobody else. We hiked midweek, so there's nobody else on the mountain. Awesome. Literally in a 8-hour hike, we saw 5 other people. And when we stayed overnight, we didn't see another person, which was awesome. It was just amazing. And I went up with a couple of just really good dudes. One's my best friend, Derek, who we talked about probably on the show. I'm not sure. Yep. My brother and another new friend to the mix as well. Equally good dude. And I think the best part was, the physicality and the nature. But honestly, it was the male connection, right? Mm-hmm. Which I don't think is built into us as the default. We're not supposed to have the feelings, and we're not supposed to share. And if you show vulnerability at all, it's exposing weakness. And it was just awesome to be up there with a couple other guys that were the exact opposite. Mm. It's taken me 48 years to learn how to become vulnerable with people. But it's incredibly empowering and seeing it modeled by two other really successful, really strong men gives you a sense of permission that this is a safe place to do that. So we were able to just kind of crack through the facade and not feel subconscious about talking about things that guys probably don't normally talk about. You know, certainly relationships with our spouses and the way we grew up, with learning disabilities, addictions, and a whole bunch of other stuff that, you know, when you come out of that, you feel freer and lighter. It was as a part of this ongoing conversation that we have on this show a couple times a week, you know, if I think it's a really big part of what we're trying to do in terms of chasing what truly matters, is being really intentional about seeking out the kind of people that ... right? That you can truly connect with. It is a powerful thing to find the people that you can up-level those conversations and connections with. And I feel grateful and blessed to be able to do it, particularly in that setting. It was great.
Yeah. Really cool. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. And that is not too much of a tangent from, I think, what we're going to talk about, especially that stuff you were talking about towards the end there. So we are going to talk about distractions keeping us from happiness. As I said at the top, this is part of a longer conversation we're having about the key distractions or the big distractions that are keeping us from health, happiness, and living with our hearts on fire. We're going to talk about happiness today. Our last episode, as I mentioned, was all about health. We talked about 3 distractions keeping us from health: the lure of quick fixes, social environmental influences, and obsession with outcomes. This time around, we're going to talk about the 4 idols: internal psychological traps, and surrendering to other people's priorities. Before we get into that, I want to do a quick reminder as to what we mean when we say distractions. And we talked about this a little bit at the top of our last episode, so we won't do the full thing this time. But when we say distractions, what they're best understood as is the unnecessary or misdirected inputs, behaviors or mindsets or environmental factors that divert our resources away from the fundamentals that create lasting well-being. And each one of these distractions can be explored as a thief of time, energy, attention, and money, one that substitutes busyness or anxiety or superficiality for the deeper work of cultivating health, happiness, and living with our hearts on fire.
So good, Patrick.
Cool. So today we're going to talk about distractions keeping us from happiness. Again, I said this already, I'll go quick. 4 idols, internal psychological traps, and surrendering to other people's priorities. The first one, the 4 idols: money, power, pleasure, and prestige. The pursuit of wealth, social status, and transient pleasures and external validations, fame, or attention are all marketed as paths to happiness, but in reality, they substitute superficial highs for lasting fulfillment. These distractions are amplified by consumer culture and social media, which encourage comparison, envy, and constant striving for more. And I do just want to give credit. The 4 idols, you and I first talked about that in a conversation we had about a book called Build the Life You Want by Arthur Brooks and Oprah Winfrey. And I'm just going to read the bit from that book that is referenced to the 4 idols because it gives enough context for us to dive in. And this is again from the book. The 13th century philosopher Thomas Aquinas listed what he called idols that occupy our days and waste our lives: money, power, prestige, and pleasure. These idols all stand in the way of enjoyment, satisfaction, and purpose. So why do we pursue them? The same reason we always do self-destructive things when we are unhappy but unable to change our circumstances: distraction. The 4 idols are distractions to numb us to emotional circumstances we dislike and feel we can't control. So with all that, what are your first thoughts here?
Whoa. Well, that's a lot, and it's a really unambiguous way that Arthur Brooks kind of lays that out. It sounds dangerous, and I kind of actually like that. Okay, so we chase these things: money, power, prestige, pleasure, and there's a difference between achievement, there's a difference between accumulation, there's a difference between accolades and awards, and there's a difference between hedonic pleasure and true fulfillment and joy. And I think that's what we need to kind of pull apart a little bit is this separation, because people go, no, like when I get a raise, I feel great. We're not debating that. It's not like, when you're partying with your friends, it's fun. Not debating that. When you do things that when you get a new position at work, you get more power, more prestige. Not debating that doesn't feel good, but it's fleeting and not lasting, which means that it's not true happiness. I think understanding this difference between what creates pleasure and what creates true lasting joy, fulfillment, and quote, happiness is really important. Because right when I lay those things out, people are like, no, I'd still chase those things. But if you kind of think of it in terms of a heroin addict chasing the next high, then you can see how detrimental these things might be.
Yep.
The heroin addict wants the next high because it creates these moments of pleasure, these moments of hedonic joy, which is not beneficial in the long term, as opposed to somebody who is grinding away as a fill in the blank, as an entrepreneur, as trying to build something meaningful and powerful, as somebody that is trying to start a nonprofit, somebody that is raising infant twins. Like those are all in the moment, not necessarily pleasure, but they're the ones that create true fulfillment. And what we want to do is not be distracted by these idols. They're counterfeit currency. They're not real. They are the dopamine hits that leave you actually empty on the other side, looking for the next hit, as opposed to the things that create real, actual meaning. So what we want to do is not get distracted, but do I like what you said is, I forget if it was his quote or yours, but do the necessary deep work, right? And one of the key words there is work. Like it takes effort. It takes intentionality. What we don't want to do is chase things that are the end based. What we want to chase things is that are values based. It's not what can I get, it's who can I become. And when you flip those things in terms of like trying to climb the ranks to just try to build your character, then we're starting to build actual happiness, because those things are almost synonymous. There's a really cool quote. I don't remember who it is, but it's the lust for comfort murders the passion of the soul.
Looking back at that quote I read from the Build the Life You Want, the four idols are distractions that numb us to emotional circumstances we dislike and feel we can't control. What's really interesting about that is, one thing that we talk about fairly frequently is this idea of the mindset continuum, from victim all the way up to warrior, and with stops from pessimism, optimism, and realism. And it strikes me just looking at that single idea, the four idols are distractions that numb us from emotional circumstances we dislike, which is to say we are unwilling to be the realist in that scenario. And we are going to, instead of seeing the world as it is, we are going to chase something that we believe will make the world what we want it to be. And that distinction between what is and what we want, we often live in the gap between those things. And what we can put in between those gaps is this I love this, what you said with the counterfeit currency of money, power, pleasure, and prestige, because we feel like that's going to close the gap between the world and what we want the world to be. But it's fleeting. It's like grabbing a cloud. It's not ultimately going to be there when we hope it's there.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that have achieved a lot of amazing things that are still not ultimately happy. There's this great quote again. I wish I could give credit to where, how many things have you, this is Chris Williamson. Shout out to Chris. And he's probably quoting somebody else, right? I'm sure he is. But how many things have you achieved already that you said would make you happy?
Yep.
Right? And I'm sure I'm butchering the quote. He's going to say it with his...
That's close enough. Yep.
But he has an English accent, so it's going to sound way better.
Way better.
Yeah. But that's the thing. It's like you said that when you got this, that you would be happy.
Yeah.
When you got to college, when you graduate college, when you got the car, when you got the job, when you got the house, when you get the wife, when you get the kids, when you retire, and you kind of see like this is not the way we do it. We as a species, we just adapt to our new, and to go, okay, next goalpost moved.
Yep. They
would just move down the horizon. We're always going to push it out there. There's, I never thought I would have the level of material success that I've had. It doesn't mean that I stopped chasing it though. It's like, and I know this is this thing inside of me that if I, to my 25-year-old self, when I was, driving from house to house doing personal training, saying like, hey, when you're in your mid 40s, this is what your situation is going to look like. I'd be like, oh my God, like that's crazy. You're never kind of like, that doesn't make you happy. It's just not the way it goes. And, Naval Ravikant has a really good kind of framework for this, which is we like to play these games, and we play two games. One is wealth games and the other is status games. And the wealth games are actually kind of new to us as a species, because for a very, very long time, there was no accumulation of wealth. You could only have what you could carry on your back because you need to follow the buffalo, right? You need to be able to carry
only store
up
so much food because it's going to go bad.
Exactly, right? So as we were hunter-gatherer societies, there was no wealth because you couldn't store anything. That's changed, where now you can play a wealth game. Forever, there has been status games. Status games are the hierarchical place you rank inside of the tribe. Are you the chief? Do you get the best cut of meat and mate? Or are you the weakest, where you have to take what's left over? That's the reason that we seek out power, prestige, and fame and recognition, because it's been built into our DNA to chase those things.
Yep. You're more likely to survive.
Exactly right. You're more likely to survive if people have your backs, if you have more power, if you have more of a tribe, if you have more support, if more people look to you as a leader and so on, maybe until they think of you as the ultimate leader and they want to knock you off. But it is important for us to recognize where these things come from. Naval's take on this, and by the way, I'm a really big Naval Ravikant fan. I think the Almanac of Naval Ravikant is one of the cooler books you can read. His take is, if you're going to choose one of the two, play a wealth game. Not to say that money's bad, because it's not, right? Money can give you lots of opportunities and freedom. So play the wealth game. And what's really cool is you can play the wealth game without playing the status game. And I think that's a really kind of cool place to be, is, try to become more chance of survival, right? If you have, back in the day, if you had a whole bunch of smoked meat and a bunch of canned food that would last you for the entire winter, and you had a staff of people working for you on your land, and you owned 10 acres, the chances of your survival went up. And that's cool. That's not a bad thing to chase. We just need to be cautious of the fact that happiness does not rise linearly with wealth. And as we kind of chase that game, saying, I'm going to be happier when I get to that, that's not the case, because it's not the equal. There is a case to be made, though, that if I'm using my wealth to have the opportunity to enhance connections, to be able to have greater experiences, to get better health, to buy back some time, if you're using it for those reasons, not to get the sports car, right? Not to be a status symbol so you can drive around downtown Miami and people turn their heads at you. Not for that purpose, but for the purpose that, hey, I'm going to invite my 4 best friends to go have a weekend in Bali, and we're going to go windsurfing and kite surfing and meet this meditation guru. And that is a good use of wealth, because it's going to enhance the actual experiences of your life. So wealth games over status games, for sure.
Yeah, I also like the idea of broadening the definition of wealth to not just financial wealth, which of course, yes, but also time wealth, and and relational wealth and all these other degree or other contexts where wealth is an abundance, right? And playing a wealth game, but recognizing that wealth is deeper than just a bank account.
Yeah.
Yep.
That goes into I forget who wrote it, but the book, like Today We Are Rich.
Right? I know that one.
That's where I got the have-tos versus get-tos.
Oh, cool.
I read it like 20 years ago. Yeah. But the idea is today, this guy grew up in most circumstances would have been, I don't think poverty, but certainly lower income. But his mom would say to him every day, "Today we are rich," and she would list out the things why they're rich, because it's not just the number of zeros in the bank account. It's your relationships. It's what you can do with your time and so on.
Yep. It reminds me of that. We did a Hopper talk, and I'm not going to remember the person who it was, but it was happiness is a 2x2 matrix, where it's what you have or what you want and what you have, what you want, what you don't want, but what you, it's what you, let me get it right. It's what you want but don't have makes you unhappy. What you want but have makes you happy. What you don't want and don't have makes you
happy,
but that's not at the fourth quadrant. That's the fourth quadrant. What you don't have and don't want is infinite. And that's where we should be spending our time. That's where we should be spending our attention, on all the things that we don't want, that we do not have. If we can get our mindset around how big a bucket that is, it makes everything else pale in comparison. Mm-hmm. When you recognize, well, I don't want to be sick and I'm not sick. When I don't want my kids to be struggling and they're not struggling, right? I don't want a house with a leaky roof. I do not have a house with a leaky roof, right? When you actually start to work through that thought experiment, you start to realize how tangible happiness could be if only we looked at it the right way.
I think that gets us into our next one, right? Because I think that has a lot to do with expectations.
Yep, let's do it. The second one, internal psychological traps, judgment, expectations, and ego. Much of what keeps us from happiness is internal, self-judgment, unrealistic expectations, and ego-driven narratives. Judgment manifests as negative self-talk and limiting beliefs. I can't do that because, for example, while expectations create a gap between reality and how we think things should be. Ego, meanwhile, acts as an overprotective filter, either inflating our sense of importance or making us defensive, thus blocking growth and connection. These mental habits distract from presence, gratitude, and the ability to appreciate what is rather than what might be.
So what this is, it's right in that kind of title, but that the internal psychological traps, right? Whereas the other one is kind of looking outside and saying, if I got more money, if I had a better job, if I had a bigger house. This is kind of that realization that the real battle is not external. The real battle is between your ears. Mm-hmm. And that, you kind of alluded to this in the previous, with the four idols, most unhappiness is just the inability to accept reality. And that's where we get into that kind of framework of the different mindsets. Yep. As you said, if we could not wish for our realities to change, but just accept them, and that's what a victim is. A victim cannot accept the reality. And this sounds weird, but victims have huge egos, but they just do it in a different way. An ego, what it is, remember, it's this way to make yourself feel important. And you can make yourself feel important by going, look how the world doesn't understand me. Look how the world is unfair, unjust. See, it's not my fault, it's the world. And again, what you're doing is you're looking outside. The difference between the victim all the way over to the warrior is literally that. The victim looks outwardly and goes, look at all of the things out there. Whereas the warrior looks internally and goes, how can I internally, it's not about the outside world. How can I internally better myself? It's about the inward focus versus outward focus. We've said this before, but instead of pointing fingers, it's about pulling thumbs. You're trying to work on your own character, your own resilience, your own humility, your own willingness just to accept and not try to force change the world. That's, there's that saying, which we've talked about before. It comes from Mo Got It, and it's Solve for Happy, which is formulaic. He's the guy that worked for Google, whatever, like Google in imagination, like just go and invent big, huge, amazing things. And he took a software engineer's approach to this and tried to algorithmically solve for happiness. And his contention is happiness is reality minus expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that if your expectations were higher than your reality is right now, you're going to be unhappy. So this is not a matter of people hear this, they go, okay, so just like no goals, none. It's not that at all. It's about just truly accepting reality instead of going like, why can't it be like this?
Yep.
Why is Donald Trump president? Like, why is COVID happening? Why does my coworker keep doing this? Why is my boss acting that way? How come my kids ... When you do that, you are literally putting yourself in a state that you are unable to bring your best self. This is like when you think about like flow states. And, Stephen Kotler was on the show before, and he's done a lot to kind of move this forward. A flow state is when you are open-minded. You're just like the reality which you're presented is just you accept. You don't try to, you're just flowing. It's like a river going down. The river doesn't try to change anything. It just adapts to the topography. It just does its thing. And because of that, it flows beautifully and flows fast, and it flows the way it's supposed to, and it does its best thing. What we don't want to do is try to work on change. It's about accepting. It's about acceptance. Mm-hmm. And that's really why the realist is the step before the warriors, because the first thing we have to do before we can even do the inward work is accept our situations, accept reality for what it is. That doesn't mean don't try. I think that's what people also miss is like, so if my flight is delayed, I should just sit there and accept that and take it. It's like, instead of like, going up to the ticket agent and trying to do it, I should just accept that there's nothing I can do. And this says no. But if you go up to them in a non-calm state, the chances of you having a positive outcome are much less than if you go up there being able to present the very best version of yourself. When you go, hey, this might work, this might not, and I'm okay with that. Michael Jordan, right? Why would I even worry about missing a shot I haven't taken yet? Meaning no anxiety, no stress, no limiters. I can just truly bring all of my best self to this. This is where your creativity, this is where your true connection, this is where the best version of you kind of pours through. So, there's Shakespeare has said, expectation is the root of all heartache. Theodore Roosevelt has one, which is, I think a lot of people have heard this one, but especially now with all social media, comparison is the thief of all joy. Mm-hmm. So if we are able to kind of recognize that what we're doing between this judgment, between the ego, between these expectations is just really putting ourselves in a non-optimal state, what that's doing is it's stealing us away from our happiness. Yep. Those are really big, much quieter distractions. I think that's a big thing that you kind of laid out at the beginning. We talked about in the last episode, distractions usually come in really loud forms, and when they're happening. Judgment, expectations, and egos are these quiet, silent killers that'll keep us from becoming our best self. If we can learn to kind of live with and navigate your ego. If you think of your ego as something that needs, the words that come to mind is like to be tamed, but it's not even that. Your ego is trying to search for, it wants to feel important. But the more we kind of like not feed that false self, honestly is what it is. Epictetus has a the ego is the false self, and it's born of fear and distraction. So the more that we can kind of like not feed that, the more our true, authentic, best self can come to life. You think of this in terms of relationships that we have, with significant others, with parents, with kids. Like with your kids, a lot of the frustration that comes about when your kids aren't listening to you is not them at all. It's about you not being able to feel good about the way that you're parenting them. Mm-hmm. If you kind of go like, check that, I'm not going to feed that part of it. I'm truly just going to have this moment with them in the best possible way with the long-term approach, not the short-term that's going to feel good in the moment, which is probably losing my shit, but really kind of try to keep this in terms of like, hey, this isn't about satisfying the thing inside of me. This is about how do I develop them and build trust in this relationship. That's where the long-term happiness comes from, because now you start to feel better about yourself and the way you can navigate the world regardless of the circumstances around you.
I've been thinking about this one a lot, this judgment, expectations, and ego. Both my boys are playing baseball now. And so we're spending a lot of time at the baseball field, at the town baseball field. And so we've got, games a couple times a week. And one of the things I'm noticing as my oldest is a little bit older now, and now they're playing baseball now. Whereas when they're younger, it's kind of like, it's baseball, but you could barely call it baseball. But
kids t-ball is like one of the most entertaining things ever.
Oh my God. I've joked, but I mean it seriously, but I say it as a joke, which is like everybody should, instead of going to therapy, should just spend an afternoon watching kids play t-ball, and you will be happier for it.
Wow.
But my point is, though, I've been with my older son, he's 8, he's playing with 8, 9, and 10-year-olds. So they're kids who are like, they care about baseball, and their parents care about their kid playing baseball. And I stand there on the sidelines and I listen to parents talking to themselves and parents yelling at their kids. Mm-hmm. And I get it. Like, I understand. I have the same sort of impulses to be like, no, do this, don't do that. So pay attention. But the number of parents I've heard talking negatively about their kid, how their kid's not paying attention, how their kid doesn't get it, how the kid should have done this instead of that. And it's remarkable how most people don't seem to understand how miserable it's making them and how miserable it's making their kids at the same time. How much joy there could be in watching your kid play baseball or softball or fill in the blank sport, and how you steal that happiness from everybody involved and around you by judging the kid for not doing what you want them to do, for expecting them as an 8-year-old to play like a 15-year-old, for the ego of what does this say about me as a parent if my kid doesn't do this or can't do that or failed here. And it's hard to watch, but I also understand it. I also understand where it's coming from. And it's interesting to hear, once you hear it, like so many things, once you are aware of it, how you can identify it and you can start to see the ramifications of that as it plays out, as it develops downstream.
Yeah, man. There's that kind of like duality, which is a really powerful, really dangerously powerful one of that. Like all three of those things kind of if you're explaining all three of those things kind of manifesting themselves in that one example, right? Where judgment brings about shame. Yep. That's what it's like. I should be farther along, right? My kid should be farther along. My kid should be better and acting better, and you're judging. Meanwhile, different kids just develop at different times. It's like we've talked about this before, but Derek, who I mentioned before, was a really high-level youth hockey coach, and some of the parents would be like, "What is the deal with my kid? How come he can't figure out what offsides are?" And like I try to explain to him, and the parents would be like irate with their kids and like yelling from the stands and then yelling when they get off the ice and walking over to the bench and talking over and Derek's like really grounded, really centered. He's like, listen, when he's 14, he's not going to he'll know what offsides are. Mm-hmm. These are like 7, 8-year-olds. Yeah. It's like just different kids are going to get this at different times. And that goes the same thing. How much pressure we put on. My kid's not on the growth chart. right? So I'm going to give them a bunch of hormones and a bunch of growth stuff to try to get them on the growth chart. Meanwhile, it's like different kids grow at different times. Yeah. My kid's not talking yet. All the other kids are talking. My kid's not reading yet. Other kids are reading. The Scandinavian countries, a lot of them don't even go to school until they're 8 years old. Meanwhile, we're like freaking out what's happening at age 4. Because in preschool, they're missing up their B's and their D's in the alphabet. It's like the amount of pressure that we put on this, and it all goes into this expectation, right? Which is just resentment waiting to happen, right? Which resentment, that causes suffering. It's the judgment. It's the shame. It's that I shouldn't be here. I should be farther along. And I'm not immune to this, right? I've worked in a gym, and I've been to the CrossFit games. I've owned a gym for 20 years, and I see other like ripped up people on Instagram, and I'm like, how come I don't have a body like that? Right? It's like, and no one's immune to this stuff. Like, I should be farther along. Like, how come they can do this, and how come I have a hard time with it? It's like, and then it becomes this whole thing is underneath the umbrella of the ego, which is I need to feel important, which obsesses over image over truth. And it obsesses over image at the expense of peace. That's what the ego is doing. Is we have to recognize that the goal is not your perfect, unique little snowflake, and everyone needs to recognize how amazing it is. It is truly, the goal is peace of mind. And we stop feeding the ego. That is a child having a tantrum, and the worst way to deal with a child that's having a tantrum is try to tell them to calm down. The best way to get a raging toddler to calm down is to ignore them. So this is where kind of the antidote to these internal ones is twofold. And they kind of go, they're kind of the opposite of what might be thinking of what they are. And it is first just to let go. As you said, you're the parent on the sideline, right? It's like, just let them be kids. Just let them have the experience of playing. Let them make the mistakes. And then give yourself that same grace when you're at work. Like, just let go a little bit. And then when you combine that idea of, like, instead of trying to hold onto the rope, so Michael Singer stuff, right? Like, what he says is like, you're tug of warring against like the entire University of, he's from Florida. So he goes like, you're trying to play tug of war with the entire University of Florida football team. And you're trying to like win this thing. You're trying to win, when instead what you should be doing is like, Luke, let go of the rope. And what happens when you do that, I'm using his, what happens when you do that is the fight's over. The struggle's over. The ego lets go. If you can do that and not only let go of the rope, but also kind of what we talked about when we were chatting about the Mount Washington thing, is if you can be vulnerable, and actually, this is what kills the ego. Vulnerability kills your ego. Because you go, and here's all my weak spots. And the ego goes like, no! Because what you're doing is going like, hey, and this is the thing that the ego is trying to hide.
Yeah, acknowledge it.
Yeah, and you just acknowledge it. And that's what creates true connection. It's the biggest thing I've learned from my wife is she's so open. You know, she has a blog called HB, Heather Bergeron, Unfiltered. Like, she just is so unfiltered. She's so open. The moment you meet her, like immediately within 5 minutes, you're like, okay, so we're going to be best friends. There's so much room for activities. So this is the way to allow people in, to create connection with people. And I wish it's a thing that I knew if I had a chance to talk to my younger self. That you always get that kind of like that question. If you go back to your 8-year-old self, your 18-year-old self, your 28-year-old self, what is the thing that you tell them? I would go, be vulnerable. Like, share your weaknesses. When you try to be perfect, when you try to hide things, when you try to, all you're doing is putting space between you and other people. And I think that between Heather and being a dad and surrounding myself with some really awesome people, that's been the biggest lesson I probably learned in the last 10 years.
We're brought to you by Monarch. It's tax season, and I want you to think about tax season like getting blood work. It's one of the few times you'll actually stop and assess your full financial picture. And the difference between that blood work being useful and being not useful is whether it helps you put together a plan of action. And that is what Monarch gives me. It's what Monarch can give you, and I can't recommend it enough. You can simplify your finances with Monarch. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool designed to make your life easier. It brings your entire financial life, budgeting, accounts, investments, net worth, and future planning together in a single dashboard on your phone or your laptop. Feel aware and in control of your finances this tax season and get 50% off your Monarch subscription when you use the code EXCELLENCE. Achieve your financial goals for good with Monarch, the all-in-one tool that makes money management simple. Use the code EXCELLENCE at monarch.com for half off your first year. That's 50% off at monarch.com with the code EXCELLENCE. Let's move on to our third of three, surrendering to other people's priorities and social pressures. We talked about this a little bit. Modern life is full of shoulds, expectations handed down by family, culture, or peers about what matters. Many people spend their time pursuing goals that aren't truly their own or get swept up in status games, comparison, and the priorities of others. This external focus distracts from the work of clarifying and pursuing what genuinely matters to us, leading to chronic dissatisfaction and a lack of meaning. This one, just as a callback to an episode we did an episode in October all about the 5 regrets of the dying. It's called Cultivating Courage and Minimizing Regrets. I just want to give them again because I do think it speaks to this quite strongly. So here are the 5 regrets of the dying. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself and not the life others expected of me. Number 2, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Number 3, I wish I'd have the courage to express my feelings. Number 4, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And number 5, I wish that I'd let myself be happy.
Yeah, so that's from, I think his name's Bronnie Ware. And that number
Bronnie Ware.
one, yep, the number one is, I wish I had the courage to live life on my terms, right? I'm paraphrasing.
Yep.
True to myself and not what other people want. That's the number one. Like, how crazy is that?
Yep.
That's the number one regret of dying people, is that they didn't live an authentic life. Instead, they lived on, which we talk a lot about on here, is like they live on, because it's hearts on fire type stuff.
Yep.
But they live by default. They live by what society, what culture, what their parents, what school, or what social media and Instagram are telling them are the most important things, instead of truly doing what sets their hearts on fire. Or even better than that, instead of living, they're living by default instead of by design. Mm-hmm. Right? We need to. Was that the name of Arthur Brooks' Design Your Life? Was that it?
Build the life you want.
There is another book called Designing Your Life, which I wish I remember the author, but a professor at Middlebury gave me, which is also really cool. It's written by truly designers, and it's all about being really, really intentional with what you want to do, instead of just, hey, mom said go to private school, mom said go to Ivy League, mom said get a job at Goldman Sachs, mom said marry the girl and get the white picket fence, mom said get a raise, right? I'm using mom as you can fill in the other blanks there, right?
Mom.
Yeah. Right. But it's instead having the courage.
Yep.
Right. And that's why one of these things is, you said, like, doing the deep work. It's about your character, which takes courage to do this. There is, you kind of even said, like, we're playing the status games. We're kind of rolling back to that. That's what this is again. We're kind of going like, how can I get more respect? How can I get more attention? How can I get more prestige and power? And the way I'm going to do that is by becoming a doctor, becoming a lawyer, not because I'm passionate about it, but because those are really well-respected, in air quotes, right? Really well-respected professions. That's a distraction from happiness. We want to make sure we're doing what sets us on fire. Mm-hmm. It's not your, it's not chasing the career. It's not chasing the degrees. It's not chasing your body image. It is truly what you find fulfillment. And I think what you said there as well, which I really liked, is I forget how you said it, but the clarity of finding the clarity of what truly matters. That's kind of the lead up into our show, right? It's like chase what truly matters. So it's another one that's kind of this quiet distraction that if we don't do the intentional deep work, we're going to be default, we're going to be on autopilot, and we're not going to be in control. And what we want to do is make sure that we're taking control of the very few things that we actually do control. And while you can't control most of the circumstances in your life, we're also not trees, right? So if you want something to change, we can go and change it. A tree cannot. If you want to go and, become a meditation teacher in Costa Rica, like, because you've done the deep work to know, not because you're avoiding something, not because you're trying to remove yourself from something, and that's an escape and another distraction, but because you believe that that is the thing that will ultimately fill you, and you're scared to do that because of the ramifications or downstream effects and symptoms of what might come about from other people's judgments. Go do that thing. Like, be brave, have the courage.
I've been thinking about this whole conversation, and we touched on it a little bit with the Four Idols one, which is this idea that there was a time when these things kept us alive. They kept us in the tribe. They kept us alive.
Yeah. Yep.
And as we go through each one of these, I think even from a pop psychology standpoint, which is basically where I come from, everything, like, I can see why all of these things exist in our heads and between our ears. The pursuit of money and power and prestige keeps us alive, keeps us safe, keeps us in the tribe. Judging ourselves, expecting things keeps us safe. It keeps us within the context of what we know will allow us to get to the next day and the day after that. Other people's priorities and social pressures keep us in the tribe. Social pressures could be, hey, you don't steal the food when we come back from a hunt. Because I know if I steal all the food after you come back from a hunt, I will either be killed or I will be excommunicated.
No, the tribe needs you to go get firewood. Exactly. I know you want to be the artist. We don't need another artist. Go get firewood.
So I think one of the, what you said was like this idea of design, not default. Really what we're saying is like, we've got to recognize that our brains have not evolved nearly as fast as the culture in which those brains find themselves. And so when we talk about this idea of knowing what matters, of chasing what matters, it's really removing as much as we can, as much as is feasible and realistic, like removing all of the old architecture that did at one point keep our ancestors alive and safe and able to pass their genes on to the next generation. We've got to be able to strip as much of that architecture away from ourselves so that we can then build something in its place. But we need to first recognize that, there's all this stuff up here that isn't serving me very well. That's maladapted to the world that I find myself in. So let me pull this down. Let me pull this down. Let me move this over here. Let me build something in its place that doesn't currently exist. That's the process of the design. That's the design process versus the default, which is like, I guess this is where I live and let's see how this goes. And that's the hard part is it's the work of ripping things down that aren't serving us and building something up in their place. That's the work. That's the courage that we need to have to do the work, because what you're saying is, I don't want to be like this. I want to be like that. And so in order to get there, we have to go through this whole process of knocking down to build up. And that's really hard and that's really scary. And that can feel isolating.
Yeah, it's isolating because, as you said, it's going against kind of our built-in biology, right? And it's one of those, the way you frame that up is spot on, which is, yes, this is hardwired. It's hardwired, but it also doesn't serve us because we're not looking for survival at this point.
Yep.
Survival, the path to survival and the path to happiness are not the same road. And once we've kind of established those, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, once we have food, shelter, safety, then it becomes, kind of moving up and looking for the next thing of like looking for community and belonging. Then it's about looking for the next thing of getting to the point of self-actualization, which is happiness.
Yep.
If we stay in the default program, we won't achieve it because we're going to end up being distracted by the survival software that's built into us.
Yep.
So what we need to do then is replace the idols, right? Replace the money, prestige, power with values, right? We need to replace the judgment with curiosity. We need to replace the ego with vulnerability. We need to start creating better acceptance rather than expectations, and replace those borrowed goals, right? Those things that are getting like pushed onto us with our own vision. And that's why when we talk about this framework, and we've talked about this a few times, but it always starts with values and vision.
Yep.
Like we need that first. Like what's the end? You got to begin with the end in mind. I think too much of us are operating in the default, which is playing these games, right? Which are going to push us off on the wrong path. And we're going to go. And the kind of stair-step dopamine approach is going to give us this false sense like we're on the right track. Because, wow, now I'm making more money and I'm getting more, what looks like respect, and I'm getting more, when actually, unless we do that deep, meaningful work to clarify what our vision and values are, which is really what this conversation has been about for the last 10 years, is right, like chase what truly matters. We're trying to say that what really matters is peace of mind.
Yep.
That's kind of the end thing that we're actually looking for, is if your mind can become like a still pond, right? That's really a nice place to be. If you're on a raft on still water, that's pretty phenomenal. That's amazing. What most of us have in our minds is this tumultuous, rough ocean where we're getting sprayed and we're wet and we're cold, and we try to solve this thing by just like paddling harder and making a bigger mess of the whole thing. If we want to be able to have that stillness, that calmness, that peace of mind, it starts with first understanding that is the end goal. Then what we can do is kind of work our way backwards from that and go like, well, what's the things we want? Well, to me, it's the next thing we want is freedom. And that's freedom tos and freedom froms.
Yep.
Right? Freedom to do what we want. Freedom to have meaningful relationships. Freedom to do things that make us feel fulfilled. And freedom from disease. Freedom from decrepitude. Freedom from oppression. Freedom from all these other things. How do we get that? I think the best path framework we've come up with is these 5 factors. That's the framework to freedom, which leads to, and it means if you have physicality from training, if you are healthy, if you have strong connections, if you have peace, working on a warrior mindset, that's the thing that's going to not let outside circumstances, outside pressures, outside society, outside a kid at t-ball game, kind of rattle you and get your mind distorted. Like we have to recognize that it takes effort. It takes attention. Your words are like, own your attention. We always say time is the most valuable thing, but Naval Ravikant, kind of dispelled that as well. It's like, no, you can spend time with your family, but if you're on your phone with them at dinner, that's not worthwhile because you're not giving them attention. Mm-hmm. So where's our attention going? Is our attention going towards these distractions, or is it going truly the meaningful things that are going to take us one step closer to our ultimate goals? Happiness is not something that's just there. Happiness comes from actions. We have to take the actions to get there. I think most people think that happiness is a default. It's just a state. And that's not the case. Happiness is the result of actions that we take meaningfully and intentionally.
Those are our distractions keeping us from happiness. We talked about the 4 idols of money, power, pleasure, and prestige, internal psychological traps like judgment, expectations, and ego, and finally surrendering to other people's priorities and social pressures. All right. So what makes that second conversation, I think, so powerful is that it forces us to look at the machinery of our own minds. The 4 idols you've been chasing, the inner critic that's been judging every move, the way you've been living someone else's definition of a good life. These are internal distractions, quieter than the external ones, harder to see, and much more stubborn. But even when you do the internal work, even when you've examined your idols, quieted that inner judge, started making choices that are genuinely yours, there's still one more layer. Because there's a difference between being happy and being on fire. That's what we want. There's a difference between a good life and a life that matters to you in the deepest sense. And the things that stand between you and that are existential. They live at the level of identity, purpose, and the stories that you tell yourself about what is possible. Fear of uncertainty, self-doubt, the comfort that quietly convinces you that this isn't the time, that you're not ready, that the risk just isn't worth it. The last conversation that we have for you today goes to that place, and it might be the most important one of all. So let's get into the 3 distractions keeping you from living with purpose and passion and your heart on fire. Ben, this concept of hearts on fire is one we've mentioned before. We've certainly mentioned it a lot. I don't know that we've ever really defined it for ourselves or for others. So I kind of wanted to start there. Is when we say hearts on fire, when you think about living with your heart on fire, what comes to mind? What do you conjure up?
It's really living it in accordance or in harmony, alignment with your vision and values. It is the things that light you up. It is your purpose. It is your passion. And what most of fear, anxiety, depression, stress is rooted in is this gap that we are living in. So it is one of the sayings, like, working really hard for something you don't care about is hell, right? That's a terrible existence. That's like the most extreme example of that would be something like slavery, right? That's a terrible, terrible existence, to be forced to work excruciatingly hard for something you ultimately don't care about at all. If you are working excruciatingly hard for something that you love and you're passionate about, that's amazing. People find the most fulfillment in that. So it's not a matter of the work, it's the meaning behind the work. And you call work your life. This is, are you living your life with purpose, passion, with your heart on fire? We want to make sure that we're spending our days, which are so limited, in meaningful ways. And we kind of separated these from health and happiness and hearts on fire, but they're all 3 sides of the same coin.
Yep.
Right? If you don't live with your heart on fire, your stress goes up. Well, we know stress is one of the massive things that erodes our health, and we went into a big kind of explanation of that in the other episode. So we really do want to make sure that we are living with our hearts on fire. You know, Raval Navikant, who we've quoted a lot recently, his little catchy thing, which he does so well, is find what feels like play to you but looks like work to others. I love that advice because no one can beat you at being you. The idea behind this is find something that you enjoy. Now, I hear the other side of this all the time, which is these really high level CEOs, professors say that, they bring people into their classrooms and they have these conversations and they give them the worst advice, which is do what you're passionate about. They're like, that's terrible advice. What you should do is earn a lot of money and then you give the opportunity and the freedom to do your things. I just wholeheartedly disagree with that. You don't want to give up any of your time, in my opinion, to be doing things that you aren't passionate about. This doesn't mean don't earn your stripes. It doesn't mean don't work hard. It doesn't mean that every day is going to be bliss and amazing. There's going to be troubles. There's going to be bumps on the roads. There's going to be potentially catastrophe along the way. But let's let all those things be in the pursuit and in the process of things that we enjoy doing, not for the sake of an outcome that we really have no control over and put the happiness on the other side of that outcome, when most cases we know happiness isn't there. Mm-hmm. Happiness is found in the process. So I think it's it's crucial for us to be able to make sure that we are living with our hearts on fire, yet we know that there's a number of distractions that keep us from doing that.
Yeah. Before we get into it, how much of Hearts on Fire, this idea, is work related versus just like, how much do we want to think about this holistically versus, we've talked about the amount of time we spend at work means that work needs to be part of this calculus we make in terms of trying to chase what truly matters, right? We can't ignore that. But how much of Hearts on Fire do you think of or how much of work do you think when you think about Hearts on Fire? Is it relegated to that, or is it broader than that?
It's not relegated, but I think it's disproportionately associated with work.
Mm-hmm.
If we sleep for 8 hours, you work for 8 hours, and you're awake for 8 hours, work is a really meaningful part of our lives. We can't just kind of like put it on the shelf and just say, well, there's the work portion. I'll take care of all of the rest out there. This is a third of our lives is essentially work. So this is the one that's disproportionately associated with work. Is it matter elsewhere? Yes, right? You don't want to be spending your time doing hobbies or other pursuits that you really are not aligned with. But this really is about the work discussion.
Yeah, cool. Okay, let's think about that as we go through these three key distractions. The first one, fear of uncertainty and risk aversion. One of the most powerful distractions from living a life of purpose is the tendency to avoid uncertainty and discomfort. The desire for safety, predictability, and the familiar can keep you stuck in routines that feel secure but uninspiring. This fear often manifests as hesitation to make bold moves, reluctance to leave comfort zones, or a habit of talking yourself out of pursuing what truly excites you. Living with your heart on fire requires embracing the unknown and being willing to risk failure or discomfort in the pursuit of something meaningful.
Right. So myself, when I got out of school, I got a job in corporate America doing finance, banking, foreign exchange, derivatives, and that stuff. So secure, with one of the biggest, most secure companies in the world. There was the corporate ladder. I knew what next year looked like. I knew what 5 years down the road looked like. I knew what 10 years down the road looked like. I knew that I was going to be getting a paycheck all the time. I knew what that was going to be. Mm-hmm. Everything was set. There was very little uncertainty. There's also very little fulfillment or happiness along the way. I left that world and took the risk and jumped into the sea of uncertainty to become an entrepreneur. But that's what Hearts on Fire is about. It's about taking those leaps, and it's really scary and it's really hard. The other thing we kind of know is like you're kind of trading certain levels of uncertainty, right? It's like the uncertainty of an entrepreneur is, or trading certain freedoms, right? There's different levels of this. Freedoms as an entrepreneur, I have this freedom of work schedule, doing what I want to do, making my own decisions, working with the people that I choose to work with. But that comes with huge levels of other levels of uncertainty, risks, where the flip side is just like this, you don't have it all. You're never going to have it all.
Yep.
So one of the realizations is to this realization that there is always going to be uncertainty. Like it's always there. And people kind of feel like, well, once I get over that hump, once I make 100K, once I make a 250K, once I make partner, once I get my degree, and they're hoping that when I get to the other side of that level of uncertainty will pass.
Yep.
I can say from achieving a whole bunch of these milestones along the way that it doesn't. Even when you have a really nice nest egg and you feel more financially secure, you're like, I hope I don't lose it. It's like it just the uncertainty stays and it just wears a different mask. And maybe just a point on like uncertainty is crazy. Like there's a study that was done in Nature Neuroscience in 2016 that showed uncertainty triggers more stress than predictable pain. The subjects reported higher anxiety when they might receive an electric shock than when they knew they would receive an electric shock. That's like the other example that has kind of been used is people would rather wait 10 minutes for a train or a bus, knowing it's 10 minutes. Like, think about you get out of the airport and you're waiting for Logan Express.
Yep.
It's the whole Uber thing. They tell you it's going to be 9 minutes before that the driver gets to you. And they're taking away that level of uncertainty. They figured this out. They've hacked it. Whereas taxis, even if it might only take 90 seconds to hail a cab, you're like, how long is, I don't know.
Yep.
You would rather wait 9 minutes knowing it's 9 minutes than 90 seconds not knowing. We as human beings like will do a lot to avoid uncertainty. So it's one of those things that we have to override. Yeah. And it's really a lot of it, risk aversion. A lot of it just comes down to accepting certain levels of fear.
I love your point about the certainty of one path doesn't eliminate uncertainty. It just creates or opens the possibility of a different kind of uncertainty. And so even the certain path, the Ben that didn't take a left when everybody thought he was going to go straight, when stayed at the bank, etc., that version who knew within 2 years I was going to get promoted to X and I would make X and then I'd be able to do Y, didn't eliminate the uncertainty that we're so scared of. Just like the uncertainty of taking the path you did doesn't eliminate the uncertainty or the certainty of what's to come next. There is no certainty without uncertainty. It's the same thing. And so if you're aiming for certainty and you're making decisions based on certainty, you're just not looking at what the uncertainty is on the other side of that certainty.
So many certainties in that.
So many certainties. But that's kind of the point, which is we need to stop thinking about certainty at all, because it's always there. We will never get rid of it. It's like problems, right? It's like you can't solve a problem and then not have any more problems. You can't make decisions and eventually the uncertainty will disappear. That's not how certainty works. It's like breathing. It's like oxygen. It's always going to be there. And so we need to remove it from our decision set, because if we make decisions based on certainty, we're just fooling ourselves. We're just lying to ourselves. We are just intentionally or not looking at the uncertainty that certainty will bring.
Heather asked me a question a while back, which was somewhere along the lines of 1 to 10, how happy are you with your life?
Mm-hmm.
Great. I mean, that's an awesome question. And my gut response was 7, right? Mm-hmm. But I paused, as I often do, and people around me are like, we had these athletes in town training last week.
Yeah. And
they're like that. I was like, I would pause before answering questions, and they were kind of like, I was meeting them for the first time. It was kind of like weird. I was like, oh gosh, get it, guys. When you ask me questions, I came with this thing with my wife, because it's like I have to say standby processing, because I'm listening to you. I'm just processing this thing. Yep. So anyway, she asked me that question. I was standby processing. I didn't answer 7 because I wanted to like run it through my head. And the thing that came up to me was like, the Phil Stutz stuff. It was like, why did I say 7? And the reason I said 7 was because I wanted less pain, work, and uncertainty. Yeah. Those are the 3 things that are embedded in human existence, right? Like they're not going away. But that's when right away I was like, well, I would like it if I didn't have to work as much, if I had more freedom. I'd like it if I had more, I was higher up the wealth game, so I would have more certainty. That's the reason I wanted that, was right away, is because if I have that, then I just feel like, and then the last one was work, pain, uncertainty, whatever. And right away I went like, well, wait a minute, like I'm farther along than in terms of the uncertainty thing than I ever thought I would be. Like I never thought I would reach where I am now. So what am I waiting for to like, and I went, wait a minute, like if you take those things off the table, like the other saying is, which Chris Williamson said, is how many goals have you already achieved that you said would make you happy? You kind of run that through. It's like, okay, my life right now actually is probably like a 9.5, because the uncertainty is not going to go away. I said it would go away when, but I've already gotten that. And then I told myself a new story that it'll go away when, and I'm just formulating these stories. They're not going away. So you go like, okay, this is just one of those things that's built into our DNA. Yep. We just kind of have to live with it no matter where I get to. I was hanging out with some other friends. He's been wildly successful. Retired at age 36, made tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars. And you would think that he'd be like, just want to like explore freedoms. And the idea was, no, I want to get to he's so driven to get to the next level, to get to next. And us, we go, that's crazy. What are you talking about? You want to get to next? Like, when is it the thing? And it's the same thing we see with these athletes. Like, okay, you're making $100 million a year. What does it matter if you make 130 or 180? And to them, it's all about wealth and status games. That's built into us. Yep. And that's where we go like, no, because when I get there, and we kind of like, we're kind of like crossing paths a little bit here, but it is because of the fear of uncertainty that keeps us from living with our hearts on fire, because we go, no, I have to know that I can go and do that thing instead of taking the risk, right? And people don't take risks, and when they do it, they're not kind of raising their hand and going, they're not connecting the dots to like, the reason I'm not taking the risk is because I fear uncertainty.
Yep.
What they'll say is things like, yeah, I should write that book. Yeah, I should start that business. Yeah, we should move to Hawaii. Yes, we should go take that adventure. We should homeschool the kids, said no one ever. But what they'll say instead of, it's like, but I can't stand that level of uncertainty. I'm not willing to take that risk. What they'll say instead is, it's not the right time. Mm-hmm. Or we need more planning. We need to think about that. I'll do that when. And
when really what they're saying is, I need to be more certain that it will
exactly right.
that it will work.
No, what they're actually saying is, I'm afraid.
Mm-hmm.
What they're saying is, I'm afraid of doing that thing that I say would light me up inside. That thing I say would set my heart on fire. That thing I say is so aligned with my moving to Montana and becoming a fly fishing guide, right? That thing I say is that thing that I want to actually do more than anything else. The reason I'm not doing that is because I'm afraid. Mm-hmm. I'm afraid of the risk and the uncertainty associated with it. That's the distraction. Yep. That is the thing that's keeping us from living with our hearts on fire. And I get it. Like, I'm by the way, it's like, I'm not condemning anyone.
No.
We all have it. That's the whole thing, is we have to recognize that these distractions are real, but unless we name them for what they actually are, which is you're afraid. And once you go like, you're afraid, not I need more planning, I need to think about it more, maybe someday, when this happens, it's not the right time. When you go, those are all the language of those that are afraid. Yep. It's okay. Like, that's okay. Now we go like, okay, I'm just afraid to do this. Then you can work with that because we put it on the table. When it's like you haven't said it, it's under the table, and you think you're having another discussion. You think it is when you line this up. You think it is when you cross that other threshold. You think it is when you create enough planning.
You think it's a logical problem to solve.
Correct. Exactly.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking about this before we chatted, which is, we've talked about this sort of 3-step process that needs to happen to chase what truly matters. So again, another phrase that we use all the time. And the first thing, but I think it's exactly the same 3-step process here, which is the first thing is we need to develop the awareness of what sets our heart on fire. We need to understand that. We need to make sure that it's not what our parents said, what culture said, what's popular, whatever else it might be. It is in fact what sets our heart on fire. So that's the first thing, is the awareness piece. And then the second piece is what you're getting at here, which is then we have to have the bravery enough to actually begin to chase it. And that's really, really, really hard for all the reasons we just laid out, right? And then the third part is we need to have the persistence to see it through. And each one of those steps is hard for all their own separate, special reasons. But that's really what's necessary to really all the things we talk about, whether it's building health or a life of happiness or a life of hearts on fire. It's like, what is it that we're trying to get ourselves towards? We have to create the counter programming in our own minds to allow ourselves to do the third step, which is stick with it when it gets hard, because it's always going to get hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, most people, I don't think this is necessarily our audience, but most people don't do the first step, right? Mm-hmm. They're just pre-programmed that I'm going to be a doctor, got to make, $500,000 and get the white picket fence. And they don't go truly, what's the thing that's going to set me on fire,
Yeah.
And then it's a matter of, Brené Brown has a quote that you can be safe or you can be brave.
I love that.
But you can't be both. Like being brave is risky, right? But being brave there's so much payoff to that. We are programmed to be in the box. We are programmed to be cattle. We are programmed to be ants marching. Just go do the thing from the school system all the way on up. And I get it, because what your parents are, they're just hedging their bets.
They're going back to certainty.
They're going back to certainty. If you become a doctor or a lawyer, I know that you're not going to end up a vagabond. I know you're not going to end up on the streets, right? Whereas if you try to be a musician, oh God, if you go and, become a surfing instructor, oh no. If you go and, lead people on hikes in the Sahara Desert, oh no, they're just trying to play it safe. But you can be safe or you can be, so another way is you can take the risks and live with your heart on fire, or you can be distracted and be in a box.
Do people take hikes in the Sahara?
I don't feel like if my kids don't wreck my stories. Everyone listening was like, yeah. But that's why it's risky.
It is risky. Very risky, actually.
Yeah. You got to bring a camel. Yeah.
Next one. Self-doubt.
That metaphor went somewhere else. I was gonna do it as a safari.
I liked it. I was
gonna do safari, and then I was like, no, that's not enough. Let's go Sahara. And in mid-S word, I changed it.
Second key distraction: self-doubt and limiting narratives. Internal barriers such as persistent self-doubt, imposter syndrome, or the belief that your dreams are unrealistic can sap your conviction and keep you from pursuing your calling. These distractions often sound like, who am I to do this? Or that's not for people like me. This self-judgment and these limiting beliefs are major obstacles to becoming your best self and living with intention. The first thing that pops in my head here, I just want to say it because I don't know if I stole it from somewhere, so if I did, sorry. But this idea of limiting narratives, I wrote down expansive narratives. We need to tell ourselves expansive narratives.
Love that.
And again, I don't know if I stole it from somebody, but if not, cool. But I think that's so powerful, this idea of we're telling ourselves stories anyways. We've talked about this 100 times. Everything from the victim, the pessimist, the optimist, and even the warrior. We're all just telling stories here. The realist is the only one not telling stories. The warrior is telling expansive stories. Everybody else is telling limiting stories, right? So I just love that idea of can we shift the stories we're telling ourselves to not make us smaller, but to make us bigger?
The storytelling thing. What the most powerful stories that we're telling ourselves is the ones that we don't realize we're telling ourselves.
Oh yeah.
That's hidden the story we got to be. It's kind of what you were saying. It's the awareness, right?
Yep.
I don't even realize that this is the story I'm telling myself. Yep. And this is where we work so hard on identifying triggers, because triggers are kind of the speed bump in the smooth road. You go, whoa, what was that?
Yep. There's the tap on the shoulder from Arthur Brock.
Exactly, the tap on the shoulder. I love that. So that's where we want to go. Okay, if a trigger happens, there's a narrative there. There's a story I'm telling myself. Can I explore that? And can I go, whoa, that's really self-limiting. That's not an expansive story at all. And I think that nothing is binary like that, right? It's not like it's limiting or it's expanding. There's a lot of gray in between there. But if we kind of at least operate with that and that's why I love the phases of mindset, the storytelling. You kind of label these stories we're telling ourselves. Is that if it's limiting, it's victim or pessimist, right? If it's optimistic, at least it's somewhat on the positive. It's at least not negative. But you're right, the realist and the warrior mindset are the ones that are telling the expansive, the accepting, the in control. I have autonomy. I am not a tree. If I don't like where I am, I can move. I am not a leaf in the wind just being blown around by external circumstances. I have agency in my life. I can make these changes. My life is under my control. You know, the way we live now in this modern era, like the opportunities are endless, literally infinite for what you want to do. You could go work and live anywhere on the planet. You could do anything you want to do. Like, what is this self-narrative that we are telling ourselves? Because that is the distraction. That is the number one thing. If we don't overcome that, first step of it, as you said, is become aware of it. What is the stories we don't even realize we're telling ourselves? Identify, kind of pinpoint, go, whoa, highlight, underline that, challenge it, try to bring different perspectives to it. Go, if I was to think the opposite, shout out to opposite George on Seinfeld. If I was to just like, just for fun, go, what would the opposite of this mindset look like? Can I just like live in that for a while? You know, not days, seconds. Just kind of go like, what is the opposite of this self-defeating thought? Well, it's that. You don't have to believe it, but just put something else in there. Just like if you drop enough droplets into something over time, it changes the construction of what it originally was. So that's all we're trying to do is kind of do a drop here, a drip there, a drop here, a drip there into a new narrative that we can kind of start telling ourselves. I think that this is where people get caught up a little bit is, you know, whether it's the pessimist or the victim mindset, it kind of wears this mask of humility, right? Like, oh, it's not like I'm just going to.
Of selflessness, kind of? Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah. Like, so, yeah, like, yes. Like it's not me. Like, it's just out there. Like, I'm not going to, who am I to do this? It's a weird kind of like thing, but we have to realize that level of that mask of humility, it's not the humility the way we define it, right? The way we define humility is growth mindset, which is I don't have all the answers. I am not born this way. I can change. I can mold. It's not about me. It's about the team. I want feedback. I don't think I have this whole thing figured out. It's kind of, but humility takes this other type of thing, which is like, well, I'm just not as good, right? I'm never going to kind of be that. I don't have control over that. It's weird, but that is actually a separate form of self-centeredness. You're putting it kind of like, you're creating this narrative about you again. It's again about you, which is really, it's a really, you know, if we want to level up and we want to level up humanity, we kind of owe it. It's the opposite of self-centeredness. You owe it to everyone else to be able to bring your best self forward. We're never going to be it all the time. We are all human. We all have faults. We are all imperfect beings. But the objective that we should be doing is to live a great life, a noble, great, well-lived life full of purpose, poise, passion, balance, hearts on fire. And if you are kind of going, well, no, not me, like, I don't know. No, it's that's the limiting narrative that is distracting us from being able to do this thing. We should be centering on, instead of ourselves, no, not me, not this, not on the mission, on the work, on the service, on the contribution. This is what I mean by like that level of humility is self-serving. Yeah. It's again, it's turning it all back in onto you in a way that is not furthering anything.
Yeah. It reminds me, I'm not going to get the quote right, but it's from the musician Neil Young.
Oh, I love it.
I came across it, I don't know, sometime. He said, I think it's holding back is so close to stealing or something like that.
Ooh.
The idea of like not giving all of yourself, not pursuing what really matters to you is to the rest of us stealing because you're not giving us everything you could give us. You're being, and I love that, the sort of the perspective shift. Like you're actually being selfish in a way that you don't think, you're not labeling it as selfish, but it's selfish to us because we don't get all of you. We don't get the version of you with your heart on fire and everything that you could do if your heart was on fire. You're stealing from us the opportunity to see that, to interact with that, to get the benefits of that.
That's how Tim Galloway in The Inner Game of Tennis redefines competitiveness.
Oh, I like that. Yep.
So the way he says it is, I owe it to my competitor to be my best.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not my best, I'm not pushing them to be their best. That's the way he defines competitiveness. Because if it's not about the wins, it's about the growth along the way. If you go, well, if it's about the growth along the way, then what does it even matter if you try at all if it's not about wins or losses? No, you have to try as hard as you can to win. That's the deal. Like you want to put your best foot forward so that other people can be challenged as much as possible. And it goes right to the heart of, no heart, pun intended with this saying, but do not ask what the world needs. Ask what will set your heart on fire.
Yep.
Because what the world needs is more people with their heart on fire. And this is the essence of this whole thing.
Yep.
Like it's not about trying to fill a void. It's not a product market fit.
Yep.
Do we need where's the best opportunity? Should I be a doctor or should I be a lawyer? It's like, no, it's neither. Where's the more opportunities? I'm going to become a computer coder because that's where the world is going. I'm going to become an AI engineer because that's where the world's. No, it's like, what's the thing that's going to make you feel so alive? People just want to be to get woo-woo for a second, there's an energy force coming out of you.
Oh,
and everyone knows.
Anytime you talk about energy forces, woo-woo.
Woo-woo. When you walk into with people that you're close to,
yep,
you can, if your wife comes in without you even turning around, you can tell. Like when we got on this call today, I could tell that you had really good energy and it lifted me up, right? Cool. It lifted me up. And what an awesome, if everyone had that because they were doing what sets their heart on fire, not because they were trying to fill a product market fit in terms of us humans being the product. We're trying to fit ourselves into the economic marketplace, but we are instead trying to figure out just what is the thing that I could be most excited about producing and letting happen. Now, maybe this is the right time to kind of loop back a little bit to kind of like our concentric circles. When we talk about work and we talk about, it's not just, I'm so passionate about ant farming, so I'm going to go make ant farms, right? It's not, the idea is, yes, what are you passionate about? The next is, where is there an economic earning potential? I don't think there's much in ant farming. What am I good at? What am I talented at? And is in line with my vision and values. Like, can I do this work with great people? Mm-hmm. That's kind of the four things. And if what you're considering is those four things, like, go. That's your heart is going to be so on fire. Yes, you're going to have hard days. Yes, you're going to have struggle, challenges. But again, it's like, it's sometimes those are the most meaningful parts. If you're washing dishes and you have extra hard times on top of that, that's hard. That's really hard.
Yep. I want to hit on one idea before we move on to our third distraction. And it's because I of all the ones of health and of happiness, of this one is the one that I think somebody out there could point to us, you and I, Ben, and say, yeah, it's easy for you guys to say, live with your hearts on fire. And I want to say that out loud, but two, because I actually think that it's an interesting thing to think about, which is, I don't think I've ever in my life been made to feel like I am not worthy of pursuing the things that I wanted to pursue. My parents, teachers, whatever, and for any number of reasons, but mostly it's because I'm a tall white guy, right? Like, fine. And I think it's important to point out that all of us sort of exist on the spectrum of how easy it is to say, yeah, I'm gonna fix the stories in my head. I'm going to not fall victim to the belief that I'm not good enough, right? Like we're all struggling with that to some degree, and some of us have it a little easier than others. And so I guess I bring all that up to say, like, have you ever been made to feel that whatever, like, okay, Ben, you're going to leave the investment banking, you're going to become a personal trainer. Yeah, that's hard. And yeah, it's scary. And back to the idea of uncertainty, but I would be surprised if anybody in your life was like, Ben, that's you can't do that. You're not smart enough. You're not good enough. You're not going to be successful enough, whatever it might be. And so I do think it's just an interesting thing to think about, is that some of us make it past that stage quicker than others, and some people get stuck there. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, we are certainly lucky as a tall white guy and a medium height white guy.
Medium white guy.
But even more so than that, it's our upbringing. You were raised with, go do that thing. We support you completely, and we believe that you can be successful doing that. That's exactly what I was brought up with. No matter what I did, I had the full support. Go do that thing. Even when, in hindsight, looking back, they were like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Totally. Yep.
And they told me that.
Here. Yep.
But they never gave me an ounce of doubt. It was a full support that we think that's amazing. Go do that thing. That's all I ever felt that I got from there.
Yep.
What that does is it helps us with this category. What happened was we don't have that default programming running through our heads. So this is why we ended up doing things that set our hearts on fire. Like, you're an artist and I'm a coach.
Yep.
Like, I'm an entrepreneur. Like, these are the things that I loved. If I could go do anything in the world, people ask me, like, if you weren't doing this, what would you do? It's a really hard question for me, because I would be doing this I would just be doing this in a different way.
Yep.
It would be the exact same thing. This is what I want to do more than anything else. If you were to retire, what would you do? I would keep working. I wouldn't retire. I would keep doing this because I love it. It doesn't mean, this is the big thing, is people like go there and they go, okay, but you have it easy because you're moderate and tall white guys. Yes. And that is, life is unlucky, but it also doesn't mean it's easy, right? It's no one's saying that any of this is going to be easy. In fact, it's way harder. It's harder. It is, I shouldn't say that. You have to choose your hard, right? So it is hard to be an entrepreneur. It is also hard to work on an hourly job, 9 to 5, where you have no control, no agency, no autonomy. That's hard in different ways. One is financially brutal.
Yep.
In terms of responsibility, brutal. In terms of the so-called uncertainty and stress, brutal. Where the other one, nope, you just go in and you do your thing. Punch the clock, make sure you do the enough to not get fired, and you're good. But it's brutal in other ways. You have to choose your hard. Life is hard. Life is going to be hard. Would you rather do the hard things that you feel in your heart make you feel like you come alive, or that you're just trying to get to 5 o'clock, you're just trying to get to the weekend, you're just trying to get to your 2 weeks of vacation? I choose the other road 100 times out of 100.
Yep.
And we, to call it out, the elephant in the room, are so blessed and lucky for a lot of the things that we had no control over. Like where we grew up, who our parents were, the color of our skin. Like, it made it a lot easier for us to do these things. It doesn't mean that any of this stuff changes, though.
Yep.
Just there's different levels of hard.
Yep.
The saying is, if everyone threw their problems into a pile, I think we'd be really quick to pull ours back. And that goes for most people that are telling self-limiting narratives. They are not the victims they think that they are. There are true victims in the world. True victims. Most people with a victim mindset are not true victims.
Yep. All right, let's jump to our third of 3 distractions: busyness, numbing, and comfort seeking. It's easy to fill your days with busyness, distractions, or the pursuit of short-term comfort as a way to avoid the deeper, more challenging work of clarifying and pursuing your purpose. Whether it's endless scrolling, overwork, or indulging in easy pleasures, these habits can make life feel full but hollow. True passion and purpose require the courage to say no to numbing distractions and yes to the sometimes uncomfortable path of intentional living.
Okay, so there's like these are kind of like they're kind of two different ones smushed together. So there's busyness, right, which is I don't have enough time. And then there's this kind of like numbing and comfort seeking, which is I'm just burnt out. I just want to I want the ice cream. I want Netflix. I want to scroll on my phone. I just want like this life of short-term pleasure for long-term pain. The first one, the busyness one. A lot of people, we have this a lot, which is like you don't confuse busy with productive.
Yep.
You know, some of the most productive people in the world can, on the surface, look incredibly unbusy. You know, Greg McKeown from Essentialism has if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. So this, again, all of this is like the heart on fire. It requires a huge level of responsibility and agency. We have to do this thing. Yep. No one is going to pave by default. This is not the norm. This is the anti-path. This is the path left traveled. This is going to take a machete to clear away a little bit so you can actually see the path at all, because it's not there at first view. Because you're so busy, because so many things are encroaching on what you actually want to do. And it takes time, as we said, to create that level of awareness of what is the thing that's actually going to do this. So that's the busyness factor. The other one is like the numbing, the comfort seeking. And this gets into like the comfort crisis and all the stuff that we talk about all the time, is that we're so distracted by the comforts of modern day society. And, it's so easy, though, the stats are everywhere about, the phones, how distracting phones are. And we're, again, now the old white guys that control but here's the average American checks their phone. I can't believe this. And maybe I'm the anomaly on this side, because I get to work and I don't check my phone at work all day.
Yeah.
I check my phone at the end of the day and try to answer all my stuff before I go home. Then I go home and I put my phone in a drawer and I don't check it. I try not to check it at all, but the reality is probably half of the days I check it one more time. Mm-hmm. So I'm checking my phone probably half a dozen times a day. Do you want to take a guess at how this is done by a study done in 2022 by Azurion, Asurion? Mm-hmm. How many times the average American checks their phone a day?
I would, without any more context, I would guess somewhere in the range of 150.
344.
Okay. I was giving them way more credit.
Yes, right? Think about that. The average adult spends X number of hours on screens not related to work a day. Fill in the blank. What is it? The average adult spends
8
X.
Or 7?
8. It's 6 to 7.
6 to 7.
Not related to work. That's wild.
Yep.
So what happens is 1 in 3 adults report being too busy to enjoy life. 6 to 7 hours a day on a screen. So you're awake for 16 hours. You go to work for 8 hours. We've done this before. We've broken down the day, right? You sleep for 8 hours, you work for 8 hours, you have 4 hours before, 4 hours after. So you have 4 hours before, 4 hours after. 6 to 7 hours are spent. Now, I'm sure people are scrolling at work and stuff like that. But checking their phones 344 times a day, 6 to 7 hours on screens. I don't have the time to enjoy life because I'm too busy.
Yeah.
This goes to the question, as people ask me a lot as a coach and a trainer that's helped people transform their bodies. When the question is, okay, I get it. Like, we all need to train. We all need to eat better. We all need to sleep. What about the person that doesn't have the time to do those things? And I say, who are those people? And they say, well, I'm one. Mm-hmm. I'm one of those people. Or they say, my sister-in-law, right? Or she just can't get healthy because she's so busy. The first question I ask is, do you have an iPhone? If they say yes, I go to settings, go to battery, scroll down, change it to the last 7 days, and just tell me how much time you spent on social media. Do you do social media for your job? No, I don't. Okay. You spent 4 hours a day last week on social. So we're distracted. We think we don't have time. That is not the truth. We're just telling ourselves that story and we're distracted. And I get it because it's comfort seeking. It's numbing. And because we're not living with our hearts on fire, this is our medicine. This is our pacifier. Because we're so exhausted, we're stressed from that misalignment. Yep. That misalignment is brutal. And if we can get more aligned with our values, with our purpose, with the things that light us up, and we can start to behave in those ways, it all changes. Your feelings change because it's bidirectional, right? It goes identity, actions, behaviors, and feelings. So your identity influences your actions and your behaviors. Your identity, I have agency. I can control my life. I live with my heart on fire. I will take risks. I can live with uncertainty. I want to have a meaningful, purposeful, passionate life. I'm the type of person that ... That creates a certain set of actions. Those actions lead to fulfillment, happiness, joy, alignment. But it also works the other way too. If you feel misaligned, if you feel stressed, if you feel disillusioned, if you feel depressed, all of a sudden the actions you're going to take are scrolling, Netflix, ice cream, couch, short-temperedness. And then you go, I'm the type of person that doesn't have the time, that doesn't. It's bidirectional. We got to do both. We got to work from both ends of that candle.
Yeah. I think the other thing with the busyness part, I think busyness is in some ways an effort at comfort. And what I mean by that is I think when we trick ourselves into being really busy, and I see this with my kids' friends' parents a lot. I think on some level, one of the things we're doing is we're trying to push away the moments of silence where we have to listen to or hear the thoughts in our head. And I think it's a downward spiral, because the more you push away that voice, or the more you push away the spaces in our days in which that voice bubbles up and we can't ignore it because we're not so busy, right? Or scrolling, which does the same thing. The less time we spend with our thoughts, the less time we spend in our head, the scarier they are. And the harder it is the next time to sit with them and to listen to them and to figure out what they're trying to tell you and to sit with the discomfort that oftentimes comes with them. And so the busyness and the numbing and the scrolling in aggregate is creating an environment where we are so scared of the silence that we do everything possible to not feel it. And then we are living a life where we don't know, where we have almost no awareness. We have no idea what we're feeling or why we're feeling it. We can't understand why I get triggered by this thing and that thing or that person. And I think that's where I think about busyness as being the opposite of living with your heart on fire, because, and it's back to a little bit of what we talked about earlier, which is like the awareness piece is so important, as is the bravery and as is the persistence. And if you never allow yourself the silence long enough to hear it, then you'll never understand why you do what you do, why you believe what you believe, why you tell yourself the stories you do, and give yourself the space to tell better stories or to understand or to change the behaviors.
It's so good. There's a great quote, which is, you will never find peace in the place you go to avoid discomfort.
Yep.
Right? So that is what you're saying is like, I don't want to be uncomfortable being bored. I don't want to be uncomfortable in my own head exploring thoughts. I don't even like working out. Like if you can work out without ear pods in and you just like allow that moment to kind of like let your brain do the brain things, but like meditation is the obvious example of this, right?
Yep.
You will never find peace in the place you go to avoid discomfort. We have
yeah.
to go to like, what are we, when we're trying to avoid, we're trying to pacify ourselves. And what we need to do is learn to cry ourselves to sleep. Instead of just kind of like, okay, binky time.
Yep.
Right? We just have to like sit in that a little bit for a little bit longer. And whether it doesn't need to be meditation or working. You don't have to go for an hour-long zone 2 run without headphones. You don't need to go do a CrossFit workout. You don't need to meditate. Like, can we start with just paying attention? Like, I think it's a really good, is like, I was listening to a recent podcast with Brian Johnson, Heroic, and wrote the book Arete, which I read to my kids a lot. And I've read it to my parts of it to the gym as well.
Yep.
And he was talking about shower thoughts. It is one of the very few places we have left that there is no distraction. Actually, since I've heard of it, I've taken a couple showers, and this is what I think. It's like it's like you're putting yourself in this like solitary pod.
Yep.
You can't, unless you have little kids running through the bathroom and kind of like, and I went through that as well. But my suggestion would be like, don't turn the music on. And just kind of like when your brain starts to go, his saying is the thoughts that you think in the shower are what you care about the most.
Mm-hmm.
And whether there's truth to that or not, when you're in the shower, be aware that you're thinking. That is just called metacognition. Yep. The ability to think thoughts about your thoughts. It is not rumination. Rumination is a spiral that you don't allow yourself to pop out of with perspective. Metacognition is thinking thoughts about your thoughts with perspective, stepping away from them and going, oh, this is interesting that I'm thinking these thoughts, as opposed to my boss hates me. Why does my boss hate me? I can't believe he hates me. I hate my job and that coworker. I should quit. You know what? Like, that's rumination. Instead going, why do I feel like my boss doesn't like me? And then popping up and thinking thoughts about that. Again, going back to that's place number 1 to start this idea of kind of surmise all the things, right? From the pre-programming messaging that we've been giving to the busyness to the comfort seeking. We have to think about things. We just have to kind of become aware of our thoughts. And the shower is such a cool place for that. I also think like long car rides without any sort of stimulus. I do like to listen to podcasts or a book up until the point where I go, that's interesting, and I pause. Yep. And it's just like it's like a little kind of like someone's interviewing you almost, right? They're kind of going like, let's talk about this. Mm-hmm. And they're just kind of plopping something in, because sometimes you get in the car, if you don't have that lead in, it'll kind of just spin on, and it kind of goes in the fragmented mind, right? And the fragmented mind is where we don't want to be spending as much time. That's what the mind will do. It's what it's supposed to. It's scanning. And what it's doing is it's scanning for problems. That's what the way our brain is set up. But if you get to focus, fragment, focus, flow. If you get to focus, like here's a question we can focus on, that can lead to a flow state, which is beautiful. It's amazing. It's what Tony Robbins calls the beautiful state, which is what we're all talking about. You will find flow more often if you're living with your heart on fire.
Yep. I speak for hopefully all of us to say that we're glad you've taken a few showers lately. Just a few.
I actually overshower for sure. I shower at least 2 times a day, if not, and there's days that I will do 3. I shower right when I wake up. I have to. Yep. I get out of bed, and it's literally like I crawl out of bed. I sleep on the side of the bed with the bathroom door, and I literally open the door, turn on the shower, and get in the shower. It's like I can't function without it.
I do too as well, but my first one in the morning is a cold shower and then a hot shower at night before bed.
I cold shower in the summer, and so this morning was my first one. So this is happy summer.
Happy summer, everybody. We're going to leave it there. That was our key distractions keeping you from living with your heart on fire: fear of uncertainty and risk aversion, self-doubt and limiting narratives, busyness, numbing, and comfort seeking.
I just might let me just add one thing on that, Patrick. I'm sorry.
The closing credits were about to roll.
I feel like that. I just want to like double down on like the point of this conversation.
Yeah,
isn't to like shame people for any, right? It's to wake up.
Yep.
It's to like kind of like wake up to this narrative. We all have it. We all have fear. We all have doubt. We all have distraction. We all
make decisions because of uncertainty.
For sure. Because of I have self-limiting thoughts all the time, and I numb and I comfort seek and I pretend I fall victim to busyness and all of it. So it's not a matter of like, this is what you're doing wrong. It's to wake up. It's to remind you that the life you want isn't waiting for you at the end of perfect timing, right? It's there right now. We just have to go get it. Heart first.
Can we be done now?
There's 3 more things. Yes, we've been done.
All right, my friends, those are the 9 distractions. If you've made it this far, thank you. Genuinely, 3 full episodes back to back, probably close to 3 hours. And the fact that you stayed with it tells me something about you. You're not here to stay comfortable. That's a good thing. You're here to figure out what's getting in the way and then actually do something about it. Hopefully, we've brought you through awareness. You are now ready to set some intentions, and you are ready, certainly, to take some action. Here's the thing about distractions. They are not the enemy. They're information. Every one of the 9 that we talked about today is pointing at something, a gap between who you are right now and who you're capable of becoming. The supplement trap tells you that you care about your health and you're looking for an edge. The 4 idols tell you that you want a life that means something. The fear of uncertainty tells you that there's something on the other side you want badly enough to be scared. The distractions then are a map. Now you have to decide what to do with it. If you found value in today's episode, please share it with someone who needs it. The best thing you can do for us here at the show is to put it out in front of one more person who's genuinely trying to chase excellence and could use a little help. And if you want to go deeper, the ideas, the frameworks, the reflection questions that help you apply all of this, that's what the Chase Club is for. Go to chasingexcellence.email to learn more. And we will see you again soon. Thank you so much for being here. 2 quick things before you go. First, the 531 listener guide for this episode is in the show notes. 5 big ideas, 3 reflection questions, and 1 key takeaway. Check it out at the link in the show notes. And second, if you're ready to do the daily work, not just listen to the show, the Chase Club is where the crew does that together. Daily lessons, monthly challenges, a Friday Chase Club chat club, all of it at the link in the show notes and chasingexcellence.email.